Rebuilding the Immortal Cultivation family. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 876 Sneak Attack. A burst of whistling sound broke through the air, and tens of thousands of wooden thorns rushed straight to the injured giant whale. The giant whale wanted to escape, but it was surrounded by vines arranged by Li Zhirui, forming a net of heaven and earth, and there was nowhere to escape. It was not that the giant whale could not break the vines, but that there was no time. It was obvious that Li Zhirui would not give it a chance. It was difficult for the wooden thorns to pierce the thick skin of the giant whale, but it already had a large wound on its body. Under Li Zhirui's control, all the wooden thorns shot towards the wound. The intense pain made the giant whale burst into a series of wails and rolled wildly in the air. The huge body would bring the power of breaking mountains and cracking the earth when rolling, and the vines gradually became unable to bear it. Crack, crack, in a corner of the vine cage, the vines suddenly broke, and a huge hole suddenly appeared in the original net of heaven and earth. Before the vines healed, the giant whale jumped up and successfully escaped, and then swam towards the depths of the seabed without looking back, leaving the battlefield at the fastest speed. Why didn't the sea tribe pass through the seabed, cross the defense line, and directly attack the mainland? Of course, it was because they were worried about being attacked from both sides. Li Zhirui did not chase after them, because killing a 5th-level monster was far less important than solving the current dilemma of the Li family stationed on the island. Zhang Fengwu, Zhao King, and Xiao Kang were fighting with their opponents in full swing, back and forth, and they were evenly matched. There was no need for Li Zhirui to intervene for the time being. But the situation on the island was different. Tens of thousands of water monsters attacked desperately, and the defense formation began to fluctuate violently. It seemed that it would be broken soon. So after Li Zhirui finished the battle, he did not chase the giant whale, nor did he help Zhang Fengwu and the others, but he started to clean up the low-level water monsters that rushed over frantically. Li Zhirui's joining greatly relieved the pressure on the tribesmen. They no longer had to squeeze their mana desperately, regardless of whether the meridians could withstand it, giving them time to breathe. But the situation on many islands was very bad. In order to defend the line of defense, many cultivators had no time to rest at all. If they didn't have enough mana, they would directly swallow the elixir. If the elixir was gone, they would hold the spirit stone in their hands to absorb it, which really cost them their lives. A sea of blood and corpses is the most appropriate description of the current battlefield. After the water monsters died, they fell into the sea. At first, they could drift with the waves, but gradually they were blocked in the battlefield. The originally blue sea surface has now turned into a terrifying scene of black and blood. There are also many casualties among the monks. On the islands where the defensive formations are still there, most of the casualties of the monks are due to excessive consumption of mana, and the meridians cannot bear the injury. The serious ones are directly paralyzed. The formation has been broken. Some monks are still resisting tenaciously, while some monks have fallen into the mouths of beasts. The island, which was originally green mountains and green waters and mainly yellow, has now become charred and covered with a layer of blood red. Li Zhirui can't care about what is happening outside now. He's going to start to help Zhang Fengwu and the other two. Zhang Fengwu's formation is continuous, Zhao King Gangfang is raging, and Xiao Kang Lei is violent. Their attack power is very strong, but the opponent's big monster is not bad either. The two sides have been unable to determine the winner and the fight is very anxious. However, with the addition of Li Zhirui, the situation of the big monsters suddenly deteriorated and became precarious. At least this was the case on the battlefield around the Li family. The war continued, but the intensity was reduced a lot, because the large number of low-level monks and water monsters on both sides could no longer hold on. Now, only the gods and big monsters are still fighting. Standing in the air, Li Zhirui looked down at the island below. Although he had tried his best to reduce the number of fallen tribesmen, there were still dozens of tribesmen who died. This number is much less than that of other forces. But the heaviness of death and the sadness it brings have nothing to do with the number. Alice, I don't know when this war will end, Li Zhirui sighed and whispered to himself. He was talking about the real end, not like before, when the Sea Clan just retreated temporarily and started a war again after recovery. And if you want the war to end, you need to wait for an opportunity. When night fell, the last battle stopped. Both sides began to clear casualties and consumption, and the data they obtained surprised them. It was only half a day, but it was more exaggerated than the usual battles that lasted for several days. The culprit for all this was the Sea Clan. If they hadn't suddenly expanded their scale and forced the monks to fight desperately, today's battle wouldn't have been so tragic. No. We can't go on like this. Late at night, after everyone had recovered for a while, they summoned a group of gods to discuss the matter. Then what good ideas do you have? Everyone knows that if the war continues as it is today, more and more monks will die, and the central region will not have time to support the monks. As for the local monks in the eastern region, there are many of them, but their strength is relatively weak. Why not take advantage of the moonlight to launch a sneak attack? I believe that most of the water monsters are healing now, and they will definitely be able to further damage the Sea Clan. Immediately, a god questioned, "This is indeed a good idea, but how can we get close to the Sea Clan's base without being discovered?" "What I have mastered is the law of concealing the sky, which can help you get close," a god said with a smile. The leading god transformation monk made a prompt decision and said, "In that case, let's take action. Fellow Taoists, please note that we don't have many chances to attack, and the monsters will definitely react very quickly, so we must use all our strength to kill as many water monsters as possible." A very rough plan was formed, and after everyone was imposed with a law of concealing the sky, it really seemed to disappear. As long as they didn't use a lot of mana, they would not be exposed. Dozens of god transformation monks took action and headed straight for the Sea Tribe's station. Even though they deliberately controlled the flight speed to avoid breaking the law of concealing the sky, it still only took a quarter of an hour. "Are you ready?" After getting a positive answer, he immediately gave the order, saying, "Go." The vast and boundless spiritual energy fluctuations were instantly captured by the big monsters. Some were still thinking about what was going on, and some had already shouted urgently, asking the water monsters to prepare defenses, and it would be better to escape as soon as possible. It didn't matter whether the other water monsters believed it or not. The most important thing was that they had to escape. So after a word of reminder, they immediately escaped into the deep sea. Rumble. A devastating explosion sounded over the boundless sea, and a huge mushroom cloud rose into the sky. The terrifying shock waves spread out, setting off a series of huge waves. This was the power of dozens of gods working together. As long as they didn't escape, no matter how high their cultivation level was or how strong they were all turned into ashes under this blow. Chapter 877 Influence. There won't be another war on our front in the short term, a certain god of transformation murmured as he looked at the backflowing seawater in front of him. With the joint efforts of dozens of gods of transformation, everything within a few miles not far away was destroyed by the terrifying attack. This created the wonder of the backflow of seawater. As the god of transformation said, of the tens of thousands of water monsters gathered here, less than 1,000th escaped. How could this number start another war? Even if they were to be recruited again, it would take at least several days to raise a large army again. During this period, it would be enough for the monks defending the island chain to fully recover. "Let's go, there's nothing to see." Li Zhirui, Zhang Fengwu and others also left with the crowd. As soon as he returned to the Li family's island, Zhao King couldn't help but say, "That destructive force is really terrible. If I had known that the sneak attack was so effective, I wouldn't have caused so many casualties." Zhao King suddenly sighed. Zhao Qing suddenly realized and said, "Yes. Why didn't anyone suggest a sneak attack before?" With a god of transformation who has mastered the law of concealing the sky, the water monsters can't find it at all. After the water monsters withdraw, they will set up guards on the periphery. The effect of a sneak attack will not be very good. The success this time may be related to the battle in the daytime. Li Zhirui shook his head and added, "Maybe there are other reasons. There is nothing to discuss about this matter. Everyone should take the time to rest and recover as soon as possible. After all, the war is not over. This can only be regarded as a half-time break. The Sea Clan has waited for thousands of years to regain the coastal areas and then plot against the mainland. How could they give up so easily?" Although this sneak attack caused the Sea Clan to lose tens of thousands of water monsters, it is nothing to the huge number of Sea Clans. The most important thing is that too few 5th level monsters died. It did not put pressure on other 5th level monsters and let them feel the threat of death. Otherwise, they would have stopped the battle long ago. At the very least, they would have restricted the entry of the god of transformation in the 5th level, and let the low-level water monsters and monks fight. This sneak attack affected not only the island chain defense line, but also other battlefields. Because tens of thousands of water monsters died, if they wanted to reorganize the army, they had to be drawn from the rear, but many water monsters had already been assigned places, and now they were all disrupted. Unless those water monsters that have not yet been mobilized are dispatched, these water monsters are either too far away from the front line, and it takes a lot of time to notify and travel, or they are the major races staying in their own territories. The Sea Clan, like the Monster Clan, is an alliance formed by many different races. Naturally, conflicts will break out between them, and some are even mortal enemies. In this case, how can the water monsters feel at ease to send all the people out? If they really did so, their own territories would be looted without waiting for the end of the war. Therefore, the support of the Sea Clan on many fronts was weakened a lot, and it did not bring too much pressure to the monks. As the island chain defense line that created all this, it is naturally the biggest beneficiary. The monks have enough time to recover their spirits and treat their injuries, the border between the central region and the western region. This place is a battlefield where monks and demons often fight. At this time, the two sides are once again in a war. After the monks who supported the northern territory were withdrawn, the monks had the advantage, but the demons did not admit defeat as usual. Because the high-level demons knew that during this period of sea tribe invasion, it was their best opportunity to break into the central territory and plunder the central territory. For this, the demons are willing to pay a big price. Of course, this price refers to those low-level demons. The demons who have transformed into gods will not sacrifice their lives to seek the welfare of others. Anyway, low-level demons are consumables. Even if they die, it doesn't matter. There are many quick methods in the magic way, and a large number of consumables can be cultivated in a short time. And the reason why the demons are willing to pay such a big price and attack the central territory is naturally because the central territory is vast and rich in resources. Even mortals living in the central territory are more delicious than mortals in the western territory, and more suitable for refining magic tools. The two sides did not know how many times the war broke out again. Various spiritual lights and magic weapons burst out, which were colorful and beautiful, but with every breath, a large number of cultivators and demon cultivators died. "We can't go on like this," a certain incarnation said in a deep voice. Although the cultivators have the advantage, the demon cultivators are like a dogskin plaster, which can't be shaken off, so they can't fully support the East region and the South region. Even though the cultivators in the Zuinitan realm are the strongest, the pressure of fighting on two fronts is still too great. If it drags on, the cultivators are likely to fall into the swamp, causing great damage to their vitality. At that time, if the cultivators want to hold their current positions, they will probably have to go through some twists and turns. That's right. We must defeat the demon cultivators as soon as possible, so that they will be afraid and dare not start a war again. There are more than one smart people among the incarnations, and they soon discussed countermeasures. Push. With a magnificent momentum, directly attack the demon cultivators. It would be best to kill a few incarnation demon cultivators. After everyone discussed it, they started to act the next day. As soon as the war broke out, the divine transformation cultivators flew straight towards the divine transformation demon cultivators like arrows from a bow, brewing terrifying magical powers. Boom boom boom, violent explosions were heard one after another, mushroom clouds bloomed in the air, and powerful shock waves spread to both sides, scraping 3 feet off the ground wherever they passed. The divine transformation demon cultivators were extremely experienced in combat, and when they saw the attack coming towards them, they began to fight back. However, the number of divine transformation demon cultivators was a few less than that of the divine transformation cultivators. And the strength of the demon cultivators was even worse. The reason for this was that the western region was too barren, and the resources needed for the divine transformation realm were very scarce in the western region. Therefore, after most of the demon cultivators broke through the divine transformation realm, they would leave the Zuinitan realm through the Shinksu Great Array and go to the void to look for resources. Most of the divine transformation demon cultivators who stayed in the Zuinitan realm had just broken through or had returned from the void. In addition to displaying great magical powers, the cultivators also used various powerful spiritual objects. If the western region is a barren land, then the central region is a fertile land. The spiritual objects that the demon cultivators could not produce, the divine transformation cultivators could easily produce several. Therefore, the demon cultivators could not resist the sudden and fierce attack of the cultivators. Although they did not kill the divine transformation demon cultivators directly, they were forced to retreat in a panic. Boom boom, before the demon cultivators could catch their breath, the cultivators exploded again. Damn it, the demon cultivators' eyes flashed with resentment and envy. If they could occupy the central region, why would they be so embarrassed? But now they can only flee backwards. Chapter 878 Trouble. The monks who had the upper hand naturally pursued and attacked fiercely, until several magic cultivators were seriously injured and hid in the depths of the western regions and dared not show up again. Only then did the group of gods stop. The magic cultivators may not be strong enough, but their ability to escape is definitely one of the best. This is also the reason why the gods were so eager to kill them, but they still failed to keep the magic cultivators. However, after the magic cultivators escaped, the morale of the low-level magic cultivators plummeted. They had no intention of fighting anymore and turned around and fled. Many magic cultivators were saved, but more escaped. The main reason was that the group of gods did not take action. Although they were extremely fierce just now and beat the magic cultivators without any ability to fight back, this was because they paid 70% to 80% of their mana. In order to prevent the magic cultivators from killing them, they could only seize the time to recover and let the magic cultivators escape. Otherwise, it would be a big deal if the low-level magic cultivators could escape by 10%. After cleaning up the battlefield, the monks returned with a great victory. In the short term, the demon cultivators should not dare to take action. A certain spirit-transforming master breathed a sigh of relief. They could dispatch more cultivators to the Great War with the Sea Clan. The demon cultivators suffered heavy losses, and many spirit-transforming masters were seriously injured. If they could not take action again, the battle on the western front would come to an end. We must find a way to make a breakthrough in the battle with the Sea Clan. We can't drag it on any longer, comparing the number of low-level water monsters with the Sea Clan. They are no match at all. So the distribution of supporting cultivators this time can no longer be evenly distributed as before. We should concentrate on a few battlefields. After winning, the surrounding battles will also benefit. They can help people nearby, and they can also suddenly intervene in the battle and attack from both sides. Soon, everyone approved this plan. On the third day, a group of new supporting cultivators boarded the huge spirit ships heading east and south. The demon cultivators have not made any movement so far, as if they have accepted the result of the previous battle. But the spirit-transforming masters don't believe that the demon cultivators will be so honest, so they have been sending people to keep an eye on their movements. At the same time, they also left a group of cultivators in the central region and did not send them all out, east region, near the sea. I have been fighting these days, and now I have nothing to do, Xiaoqing sighed. Li Zhirui couldn't help but laugh and said, a new round of war will break out in a few days, and you won't be so comfortable then. It has been almost 10 days since the end of the war, but the Sea Clan still hasn't summoned a new army, and there are only occasional sneak attacks, so the monks don't take them seriously at all. During this period, most of the monks' injuries have been healed, and the more serious ones have returned to the main island to heal their injuries. After a long period of rest, the monks' strength has recovered. When the war breaks out again, they will definitely give the Sea Clan a surprise. That group of incarnations came to you again, Brother Jiu. Xiaoqing seemed to have thought of something, and a trace of dissatisfaction flashed in his eyes. Yet, Li Zhirui responded with a slightly cold face. Before the war, those incarnations wanted to test the purification law, but were blocked by Li Zhirui, and then the Sea Clan attacked, and no one cared about it. But now that the Sea Clan was badly hurt, their minds became active again. They came here again and again, wanting to verify the law of purification. Even though Li Zhirui had denied it, and even used the law of purification in front of them to confirm that it was useless for spiritual creatures, they still did not give up. Or rather, they changed their direction. The law of purification is useless for spiritual creatures, so what about cultivators? You know, a large number of cultivators have personally experienced the reign of purification. Li Zhirui wanted to deny it, but he could only admit it, but he also set a lot of cumbersome conditions. What about various purification of spiritual creatures at the same level as cultivation? He couldn't use it too many times in a short period of time. But even so, it didn't dispel their madness. Huh. You still don't give up until now, Xiaoqing sneered and mocked. Let them go, don't pay too much attention to it. Li Zhirui waved his hand disapprovingly. Anyway, the initiative was in his hands. Seeing that Li Zhirui was so confident, Zhao King stopped talking, chatted for a few words and left. Li Zhirui spent some time to calm down, then took out the alchemy furnace and began to refine the precious pill. Even if he was on the battlefield, as long as there was no war, he would refine a few furnaces of precious pills after completing his daily practice, under the sea. How many low-level water monsters did you bring back this time? Aoda, the leader, asked hurriedly. In the past, they looked down on low-level water monsters, but now, they know the importance of low-level water monsters. If there were no low-level water monsters, with these powerful monsters, even if they started a war, they would not be able to hold out for long and would be defeated. Many ants bite the elephant to death. A large number of low-level cultivators launched an attack. They could not avoid it at first, but they could not hold out for long, not to mention that there were also divine transformation cultivators, whose strength was not worse than theirs. There are less than 20,000, the big monster said with a frown. What? The big monster on the side couldn't believe what it heard. Less than 20,000 low-level water monsters? This number, if placed on a battlefield like a meat grinder, would be almost killed in less than an hour. You know, in their heyday, there were 50,000 or 60,000 water monsters, but even so, they were still at a disadvantage in front of the monks who occupied the advantageous terrain. Now there are less than 1/3 of them, and it is impossible to launch a battle. Why are there so few? Other battlefields also need new forces to join, the big monster sighed and said, I heard that on the battlefield far away, we obviously had a great advantage and were about to break through the defense line, but a seriously injured god-transforming monk blew himself up. Speaking of this, the big monster felt a sense of admiration in his heart. You know, that person was only seriously injured and was not in a life and death crisis. In order to defend the defense line, he resolutely took the initiative to self-destruct. The damage that can be caused by the self-destruction of a god-transforming monk is unstoppable, and they can only run away. But at that time, who could have expected that the god-transforming monk would give up his life and take the initiative to self-destruct? Time was tight, and most of the sea creatures had no time to dodge. It is conceivable how many casualties were caused. In comparison, they were ambushed by the monks in the island chain battlefield, and most of the low-level water monsters were wiped out, which was nothing at all. At least these 5th-level monsters are still alive, with only 1 or 2 unlucky ones who didn't escape. Unlike the battlefield, only a few water monsters that were far away survived. Therefore, even though they are of different races and have opposing positions, it does not hinder its admiration in its heart. If it were in that situation, it would never give up its life. Admiration is admiration, but this self-explosion has brought them huge troubles. The two battlefields need to replenish a large number of low-level water monsters, one of which needs 5th-level monsters, and the other battlefields also need to send support. However, there are not so many low-level water monsters that have been mobilized. Chapter 879 Tired. How do those powerful people in the rear plan to solve this problem? Aoda asked after a long silence. The great demon who returned to the battlefield from the underwater crystal palace kept silent. Obviously, those powerful people couldn't think of any good solution. Are there any low-level water demons in the boundless sea? Of course there are. But the problem is that these low-level water demons are either too weak or have to protect their territory. It's useless to recruit the former, as they are just sending themselves to death, and the major races will not agree to recruit the latter. Before they could discuss anything, bad news came one after another. The incarnation monk who took the initiative to self-destruct inspired the morale of the monks on the battlefield around him. In addition, the original group of monks were full of morale and were unstoppable. The Sea Clan was defeated and fled, and the battle line collapsed, further affecting more battlefields. Hearing this urgent news, the expressions of the great demons present changed slightly, and they couldn't help but have an idea in their hearts. This time, the battle to conquer the near sea will probably end in failure. Not only that, the Sea Clan suffered heavy losses and was seriously injured. The only good news is that not too many 5th-order monsters have died, so it should not be a problem to defend the distant sea from the expansion of the cultivators. There was silence in the temporary hall. When Aozai and other water monsters received the news, Li Zhirui and others also learned about the deeds of the god-transforming cultivator. Shen Shihua. After the news reached the main island, all the god-transforming cultivators were summoned. And this name will spread to the ears of every cultivator in the Zuinun realm. If he had not sacrificed himself and defended the defense line, the Sea Clan would have used this as a breakthrough point and swarmed in, forcing the cultivators back to land. It was also because of his sacrifice that the Sea Clan suffered countless casualties, and the cultivators completely gained the upper hand. Of course, the island chain defense line also contributed to this. It also inspired countless cultivators to defeat the Sea Clan on various battlefields. The Sea tribe here no longer needs so many monks to defend. We can transfer some people to the surrounding battlefields to help them defeat the water monster army and expand our advantage. In addition to promoting Shen Shihu's great deeds, he also notified the monks to prepare for support and participation in the war, and to transfer half of the monks. Everyone can take the initiative to sign up. If the number of people is not enough, we will transfer them fairly according to the strength of each force. After the leading Huashin finished speaking, everyone dispersed. If nothing unexpected happens, the war will soon be over. Li Zhirui returned to the Li family island, called all the tribesmen, and announced something exciting. "Dad, did the Sea tribe surrender?" Li Chengshu asked excitedly. Li Zhirui shook his head and told the story of Shen Shihu and the situation that followed. He added, "Half a month has passed, but the Sea tribe still hasn't formed a large army. It's not difficult to guess that they can't recruit many people from the low-level water monsters, but don't be happy too soon. The Sea tribe monopolizes the boundless sea. It's impossible to say that they don't have any trump cards. So now the focus is to take advantage of the weakness of the Sea tribe to further attack them and weaken their strength." After a pause, Li Zhirui continued, "Now we need a lot of cultivators to support the surrounding battlefields. Are there any of you willing to sign up?" "I want to sign up." The tribesmen were very active and scrambled for this quota. Li Zhirui could only select enough people according to the order of everyone's registration. The rest of the tribesmen will stay on the island to defend the station. The god of transformation left Jiang Fengwu and decking. One of them controls the formation and the other is good at defense. They are perfect. Everyone rest for a night and set off early tomorrow morning. The next day, Li Zhirui led a group of tribesmen to a battlefield in the south of the island chain to support. In addition, there were many cultivators. With their joining, the situation changed drastically, and the water monsters were killed and thrown away their armor and weapons, in a mess. Carrying the momentum brought by Shen Shihu's death, the monks were like a mighty torrent, unstoppable and smashing everything in front of them. Not only that, a new batch of support from the central region also came to the battlefield. The water monsters had no power to fight back, and could only retreat continuously, and finally fled back to the distant sea. And the monks also tacitly stopped the war here and did not move forward. Li Zhirui led the tribesmen to run around for several months, and only returned to the island when there were no water monsters around. Many members of the Li family unfortunately died during this outing. Even Li Chengsheng was seriously injured by the water monster. If it weren't for Li Zhirui's care, he might have died. After all, the water monsters were forced into a desperate situation. If they wanted to survive, they could only fight desperately. It was also because of this that the hot-blooded monks finally calmed down and were not so radical. "It won't be long before we can go back." After running around for so long, either fighting or on the way to fight, even Li Zhirui was a little exhausted. The other tribesmen were even more exhausted, and they looked listless, as if all their strength had been squeezed out. "Shenjie was seriously injured. You should spend some energy to take care of him," Li Zhirui said weakly. "I know," Jiang Fengwu said with some heartache. "You should go and rest quickly." Li Zhirui nodded and left with heavy steps. It took several days of rest for Li Zhirui to recover. After a while, Jiang Fengwu and others who received the news all rushed over. "I went to inquire about it. The powerful are negotiating with the Sea tribe. The end of the war is not far away." At the end, Jiang Fengwu couldn't help but have a few happy expressions in his tone. Li Zhirui was not as optimistic as Jiang Fengwu, and said, "I don't think the Sea clan will give up. Given the current situation, the Sea clan has been completely defeated. What else can they do?" Not only Jiang Fengwu, but Decking and the others also did not believe Li Zhirui's judgment. Li Zhirui shook his head and said, "The Sea clan has waited for thousands of years to regain the coastal waters. How can they give up so easily, even if they are suffering heavy losses now, even if they can no longer mobilize enough low-level water monsters to participate in the war? But the mainstay of the Sea clan, the fifth-level monsters, have not died much? In other words, the Sea clan is still capable of fighting. And it is a war between the gods. If such a war really breaks out, its intensity will far exceed all previous battles. Of course, The Sea Clan may also be concerned about losses and retreat. It has been said before that the Sea Clan is an alliance formed by multiple races. For example, the Jialong clan, which has a large family and a deep foundation, may not care about the various losses before. But among the Sea Clan, how many families can have the confidence of the Jialong clan? Maybe some small races have already fallen into a situation where their people are sparsely populated or even have no successors. These races will definitely oppose the re-emergence of the war. If they can occupy the majority and gain the right to speak, the war will really end. Chapter 880 End. Deep Sea, Crystal Palace. Almost all the 5th level monsters of the Sea Clan are present. What they are about to discuss will determine the direction of this war, which is called the War of Recovering. Should they stop here and end the war, or continue to mobilize a large number of water monsters to join in the bloody battle? All this will be answered in their debate. We can't end the war so easily. Sign a contract with the monks. Are those dead compatriots sacrificed in vain? A dragon was the first to speak, shouting excitedly, as if agreeing to a ceasefire would make him a sinner of the Sea Clan. Do you know how many water monsters have died in the past few years? This is called stopping losses in time. Do you have the confidence to defeat the monks? A monster that looks weird and rare at first glance asked coldly. Seeing that the dragon didn't speak, he sneered and continued, "You have no confidence. If you are asked to lead 100,000 of your people to fight now, how many can you bring back? 10,000, 20,000? Or 30,000? The reason why this big monster is so aggressive and doesn't give the leader of the dragon clan any face is that the clan members who fought with it were almost wiped out. Only those clan members who stayed in the clan land were left, and most of them were old, weak, sick and disabled. The red line of genocide has been touched. How can it not be angry and furious with this result? Your dragon clan is big and powerful, and you don't take this loss seriously at all, but these small families can't. They can't bear it. Before, there was a beautiful vision of entering the near sea and robbing monks, but in this situation, how can we continue to fight? How much will it cost to take down those monks? Even if these monks are defeated, there are still a large number of monks in the east region and the central region. If the war continues, my Chengdang Mingayu clan will be completely destroyed, the big demon said firmly. In the next war, the Chengdang Mingayu clan will not send any of its own clansmen. The first sentence instantly hit the hearts of the big demons of small and medium races, causing a strong resonance. How could they not? In fact, apart from the Jialong clan, only the big races such as the deep sea black snake and the thousand water turtle still have the idea of continuing to fight with the monks. Because they can afford it. The other small and medium races, on the contrary, all express their refusal to participate in the next war. In their view, what's wrong with the vast open sea? Why should we pay such a high price to capture the barren and desolate near sea? As for the ancestral land of the Sea Clan and the consideration for the future, they don't care even more. As a result, the Sea Clan split into two factions, one advocating war and the other advocating peace. The two sides quarreled endlessly and no one could convince the other. The advocating war faction was stronger and all were large races, while the advocating peace faction seemed to have a large number of people and had attracted many forces. Arguing won't solve the problem. How about this? Since you are willing to continue fighting with the monks, then go by yourselves. We won't accompany you. As he said that, the big demon was about to leave the Crystal Palace. If it was the only demon leaving, it would be fine, but the other 5th level big demons followed behind. Alice. Haven't they thought that we have suffered heavy losses? And the monks have also suffered heavy losses, a certain dragon sighed. But things have developed to this point, and there is no need to start a war again. The big tribes such as the dragons are not stupid. They use the power of several families to fight against the monks. So, the Sea tribe took the initiative to invite the monks to negotiate. This can also be regarded as a kind of bowing and submission. Half a month later. The reason for waiting so long is that both sides need time to prepare and judge. In the sky above the junction of the azure near sea and the dark black distant sea, 4 perfect monks of the incarnation and 4 perfect 5th level big demons sat opposite each other. They are the ones who presided over the negotiations between the two tribes. The Sea Clan is defeated. First, they must compensate us with 100 million spirit stones, or use spirit objects of equal value to offset the loss. Second, we must sign a new contract. The same dividing line as before. Within 5,000 years, the 4th level monsters are not allowed to step into the sea. Third, The cultivators proposed more than 10 conditions in succession. The monsters looked uglier and uglier, but they did not give up. They suppressed their anger and said, "We will never agree to such harsh conditions. What do you think is wrong? We can discuss it," the cultivator said with a smile. Negotiation is just a continuation of war. If you can't win on the battlefield, how can you win at the negotiation table? So the cultivators don't care at all. They are already invincible. The monsters constantly modify or deny the contract conditions that are unfavorable to the Sea Clan. After reading the revised version, the monks shook their heads and said, "Since you have no sincerity, forget it. Let's compete on the battlefield." The big monsters did not panic when they heard this. They said calmly, "Just show us your bottom line. Let's discuss it together." For the content of the contract, the 8 souls who had reached the perfection of the transformation of God stayed in the clouds for more than a month, and finally satisfied both parties. Then the 2 sides swore an oath, and the contract was reached, and then they dispersed. In fact, the contract signed this time is not much different from that of thousands of years ago. It also prohibits the 4th level big monsters from entering the near sea. There is another more important point, that is, the compensation of the Sea Clan as the defeated party. The Sea Clan will take out spiritual objects worth 100 million spiritual stones, of which 40% must be 5th level spiritual objects. But to be honest, these spiritual objects will hardly fall into the hands of small and medium-sized forces. They have been divided up by major forces early on, and those that are distributed have already become spiritual stones. But the worst are those casual cultivators. I'm afraid they won't even have many spiritual stones. The Sea Clan has given up. This good news spread quickly as soon as the contract was signed, and all the cultivators who knew about it were excited. This war lasted for 2 or 3 years, and now it is finally over. To this day, most cultivators have developed some war weariness in their hearts. After all, it is a very painful thing to see people they are familiar with leave. Countless creatures died in the war, and it was not just the Sea Clan and cultivators, but also the demon cultivators and the monster clan. The demon cultivators wanted to take advantage of the situation, and the monster clan naturally did not want to miss this great opportunity. Compared with the demon cultivators, the monster clan is more destructive. Because the monster clan is widely distributed, except for the central region, where there are very few monster clans, you can see the figures of the monster clan in other places. So many monster clans ran out to stir up trouble, and those mortals living in remote areas suffered the most. They are the primary targets of the monster clan. However, with the end of the war and the return of the cultivators, the good days of the monster clan are over. If they still don't know how to restrain themselves, they can only go to the underworld. Chapter 881 Closeness. Li family residence. After Li Zhirui knew that the contract was signed, he summoned all the tribesmen and announced that they would return to Banyan Island immediately, and asked them to clean up the spiritual objects on the island. Feng Wu, you take the tribesmen back to Banyan Island first, and I will attend the next meeting alone, Li Zhirui said to Zhang Fengwu and others. There was nothing to do later, just arguing with each other, and then rewarding according to merit and distributing rewards. The identity restrictions of Decking and others destined them to be unable to participate, and it was useless to leave Zhang Fengwu, which was a waste of time. By the way, this is the top-grade healing elixir that I took the time to refine. Distribute it to the seriously injured tribesmen to avoid hidden dangers. This is also the reason why Li Zhirui, the dignified god of transformation, is so tired. In addition to clearing out the water monsters, he is also refining various elixirs while rushing on the road, and has no free time. If they still cannot be cured, send them to the purification spirit realm. Although there is no Li Zhirui casting spells, the environment in the spirit realm also has many benefits for their treatment of injuries. Got it, brother Jiu? Don't worry, we will take good care of the family. Li Zhirui said no more and set off to the main island. Of course, the rewards could not be distributed directly to each cultivator, but were distributed layer by layer. Their battlefield was distributed on the main island. At this time, he could already see many cultivators leaving, and from time to time a ray of light flew across the sky, flying towards the western continent. It seems that several years of war have made many cultivators eager to return home. As soon as the news came, they couldn't wait to go back, but this is also human nature. Li Zhirui shook his head and soon boarded the main island. Fellow Taoist Li is here. All the gods who met him would bow their heads and greet him. Ever since Li Zhirui admitted in person that the purification law he mastered was indeed effective for hidden injuries, hidden dangers and other problems, these gods from the central region have been quite enthusiastic about him. Even though Li Zhirui said that there were many requirements and restrictions, and that these problems could not be completely eliminated, their attitude remained the same, without the slightest change. But think about it, compared with other methods, Li Zhirui's requirements were not too harsh, and the effects sounded similar. Of course, they had to maintain a good relationship with Li Zhirui. After all, you never know when they will need help from Li Zhirui. Even those gods who had some conflicts with Li Zhirui came to him privately and apologized. That's why the previous scene happened. In fact, Li Zhirui didn't want to admit it, but there was no way. These gods were too tight, and they came to him every day to make indirect attacks. Seeing this, the few gods who came with rewards on the island flashed a hint of surprise in their eyes, and whispered to the cultivators around them, "What is the identity of that person, or is there another reason why he is so respected by everyone? Judging from his cultivation, he is only in the middle stage of the gods, which is not bad, but not so bad." I don't know. The purification law mastered by Li Zhirui can eliminate impurities in the body and treat hidden injuries, so we respect him so much, I see. As a spirit-transforming cultivator, he naturally understood the use of this ability, and could not help but fall into deep thought, not knowing what he was thinking. As for Li Zhirui himself, although he looked friendly and modest, he was smiling bitterly in his heart. He had already weakened the effect of the purification law by more than half. But he still attracted the attention of many people. If he revealed his complete ability, he would probably not have peace in the future. Thinking of this, Li Zhirui's heart trembled. He must keep the secret well and must not let it out. Fortunately, not many people knew his ability, only the three of Daking, as well as Yang Fengwu, Li Chengsheng and Li Chengshuo's mother and son. After going back and instructing them, I believe they will not spread the news. Seeing the spirit-transforming cultivators coming over to say hello, Li Zhirui regretted it in his heart. If he had known this earlier, he would not have taken the initiative to take charge of the matter, but let Zhang Fengwu come forward. But now he can't leave even if he wants to, so he can only sit in a remote corner, hoping to reduce some attention. Unfortunately, Li Zhirui's expectations were dashed. Even though he sat in a corner, many gods came up to greet him and get closer to him. Fortunately, after a while, when the gods from all sides arrived, they started to argue with each other and discuss the distribution of spiritual objects, and no one paid attention to him anymore. Li Zhirui finally breathed a sigh of relief. Regarding the distribution of spiritual objects, Li Zhirui did not ask for it, because the compensation and reward for the Li family were quite fair. He was not greedy to get more, so he just sat there quietly, listening to the endless quarrels with his eyes empty. After an unknown amount of time, the scene finally quieted down. Ali, a god walked up to Li Zhirui and called softly at first. Seeing that he did not respond, he could not help but raise his voice. Huh? What's wrong? Li Zhirui's soul, which had been put into the space, returned to its position instantly. A trace of surprise flashed in the eyes of the god. As a god, he did not even notice that someone was so close to him. I have something to trouble Dao. Why don't you lend me a hand to talk? Li Zhirui understood in his heart that he should also come to purify the laws. Okay, he stood up and followed him into the side hall. What's the matter, friend? After Li Zhirui finished speaking, he saw the incarnation cast a spell to shield the inside and outside. I am Zhen Yunzi of the Wanjian sect. One of my uncles was plotted against by a demon cultivator many years ago. A demon seed was left in his body, and he has suffered for many years. Zhen Yunzi bowed and said, I heard that fellow Taoist has superb skills and the ability to heal diseases. I beg fellow Taoist to help. Zhenai Sword Clan, will be grateful and repay you with a generous gift. Li Zhirui frowned slightly. He could only believe half of what Zhen Yunzi said. Even with the ability of the Wanjian sect, they couldn't solve the demon seed in his uncle's body, which was enough to show that the problem was not simple. You know, the Wanjian sect is a first-class sect in the central region. Even if the Wanjian sect is not good at curing diseases and saving people, with its identity and appearance, it is no problem to ask those great men in the central region to take action. Even if you take a step back and say that Zhen Yunzi's uncle is just a Yuanying cultivator, and the Wanjian sect is unwilling to come forward, isn't there still this Hanai sword vein? You know, their lineage is one of the strongest in the Wanjian sect. Zhen Yunzi is willing to speak to Li Zhirui, so he will naturally ask for help from other Huishan in the central region. But the problem has not been solved until now, which shows that it is not easy. Of course, Li Zhirui would not agree to it without any hesitation, even if Zhen Yunzi promised him a huge profit. Thank you for your concern, but the demon in your master's body must have been seen by many fellow Daoists and even seniors, but it has not been resolved until now. With my limited ability, I am afraid I can't do anything about it. Chapter 882 Agree. Zhen Yunzi's face darkened, but he did not give up, because he felt that Li Zhirui was the person who was most likely to solve the demon seed in his master's body. He had already learned from other cultivators that Li Zhirui had removed the poisonous insects in the bodies of a group of cultivators that even the powerful could not detect, and also cleansed their bodies. It was because of this incident that Zhen Yunzi felt that Li Zhirui's purification law could remove the demon seed in his master's body. After hesitating for a moment, Zhen Yunzi decided to tell the truth and said, Dao, you don't know that my master is the chief true disciple of the previous generation of Wanjian sect. His realm has long broken through the perfection of the spirit transformation, but he is limited by the demon seed in his danshan and dares not ascend to heaven. If Dao can help my master solve the demon seed, my Wanjian sect will remember your great kindness. Hearing this, Li Zhirui was shocked. The chief true disciple. You know, the core of a force is the true disciple. A cultivation family like the Li family may not have the title of true disciple, but in fact there is such a group of clansmen who are focused on and cultivated. The chief disciple is the one who is the most powerful in both talent and character among a group of chosen ones. He is the eldest brother elder sister of this generation. If he can really help the chief disciple of the previous generation of Wanjian sect to solve the demon in the danshan, Li Zhirui will definitely become a distinguished guest of Wanjian sect. The title alone is very tempting, not to mention the large amount of substantial rewards. Even with Li Zhirui's character, he couldn't help but be moved. But soon, Li Zhirui calmed down. The chief disciple is also about to ascend to the perfect state of incarnation. Wanjian sect will never give up this great man. It means that they have made all efforts, but still failed to solve the problem. It can be seen how difficult it is. If they fail, the consequences will be disastrous. Li Zhirui will bear the raging anger of the Wanjian sect. Thinking of this, Li Zhirui calmed down completely and said, I'm sorry, I'm not capable enough to take on this important task. Dao should find another way. Dao, are you worried that the sect will resent you if you fail? Zhen Yunzi saw Li Zhirui's worry and said sincerely, please rest assured, even if you really fail, no one will resent you, because Master Dao Tong's lifespan is not long, he will soon pass away. Zhen Yunzi looked lonely and sad. Logically speaking, the lifespan of a divine transformation cultivator is 2,000 years, and the Wanjian sect has a generation of 200 years. It is impossible for Dao Tong to pass away so quickly. But the demon seed embedded in his danshan has caused too much damage to him. It has worn away hundreds of years of his lifespan. Li Zhirui frowned, weighing the pros and cons in his mind, ignoring Zhen Yunzi's earnest, pleading eyes, and spoke after a long time, asking, Dao, do you know the calmness of the killing sword vein, Uncle Zhenjing? Zhen Yunzi didn't understand why Li Zhirui suddenly mentioned this elder of the sect who was younger than him. There are several sword veins in the Wanjian sect, and the killing sword vein is the most unique one. It has extremely strict requirements and is passed down from one line to another. Therefore, there have been no successors for several times, and the sect needs to come forward to find a successor, which has led to the high seniority of the killing sword vein. She is actually a member of my Li family. Her real name is Li Zhixun, and she is my sister. Li Zhirui asked, I wonder how she has been doing these years. Uncle Zhenjing is actually Dao's sister. Zhen Yunzi was stunned, but the next moment he was excited. With this relationship, the possibility of persuading Li Zhirui to take action is higher. As for why Zhen Yunzi had no doubt about the truth of this sentence, it was naturally because Li Zhirui's lie did not benefit him in any way, but was beneficial to Zhen Yunzi. Master Uncle is extremely talented and has successfully broken through to the God transformation realm. Speaking of which, she is also fighting in the coastal waters of the East region. Did she come back? If Li Zhixun came to the Wangsan Sea, Li Zhirui might have agreed. Did Zhixun also break through to the God transformation realm? Li Zhirui felt very relieved. He really didn't make a mistake back then. At this moment, Li Zhirui's storage ring suddenly trembled slightly. His spiritual sense probed into it and found that the J token of the sound transmission array was activated. Zhixun is back. Come back quickly. What a coincidence. Li Zhirui didn't expect the development of things to be so coincidental, as if there was a big hand behind all this. Could it be that this is God's will? Must I try to solve the demon seed? Li Zhirui thought to himself. He glanced at Zhen Yunzi and said, Zhixun is back. I'll take my leave first. I'll also go to see Uncle Zhanjing. Li Zhirui did not stop him. Two spiritual lights shot up into the sky. In just a moment, they stepped on the land of Banyan Island and flew to the cave on the top of the mountain. The laws mastered by everyone are different, and the spiritual realm is not suitable for entertaining guests. Especially Li Zhixun, who practiced a killing sword and must master the law of killing. She couldn't stand the law of purification at all. Ninth brother, Li Zhixun also saw a god in the robe of Wanjian sect behind Li Zhirui. Junior Zhanayan, a disciple of Zhanai's sword vein, greets Uncle Zhanjing. No need to be polite. Li Zhixun's eyes moved between the two people, and soon guessed what happened between them. Are you here for Brother Dao Tong's matter, Uncle Master? You have a keen eye. I am here to visit Mr. Li Zhirui for this matter. In front of Li Zhixun, Zhen Yunzi naturally could not call her brother Li Zhirui a fellow Taoist, but according to the strength, he could not call him a senior. After all, both of them were in the middle stage of the spiritualization realm. After getting a positive answer, Li Zhixun said to Li Zhirui very directly, Brother Jiu, if you are okay and feel that there is some possibility, why not come with us to the Wanjian sect? Oh, Li Zhixun did not hide anything. In order to relieve Brother Dao Tong's disaster, the sect promised a very generous reward. Not only can you choose 5 spiritual objects from the inner storehouse, but you can also propose 3 reasonable conditions to the sect. Most forces will divide the treasury into several layers. The outer storehouse is used to place a large number of frequently used spiritual objects, such as various spiritual medicines used for alchemy. The inner storehouse is used to place precious spiritual objects. Most of the spiritual objects that can be collected by the Wanjian sect are natural treasures. It is indeed very generous to choose 5 at will. Not to mention who can propose 3 conditions to Wanjian sect. Zhang Fengwu, Daking and others on the side were confused and didn't understand. They only knew that Wanjian sect had something to ask Li Zhirui for help. The most important thing is that Brother Dao Tong's lifespan is not long. After he resolves the demon seeds, it won't be long before he begins to transcend the tribulation and ascend to heaven. Brother Jiu, you can take this opportunity to observe closely and accumulate some experience for your future ascension. Okay. I will go to Wanjian sect with you. Li Zhirui finally agreed. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 883 Welfare. What attracted Li Zhirui the most was Li Zhixun's last words. Dao Tong was about to ascend to heaven and pass the tribulation. If he could really help him get rid of the demon in his body, then Li Zhirui would make this additional request, and I believe that Wanjian sect would not refuse it. Li Zhirui is now in the middle stage of the spirit transformation, and there is still a long way to go before he ascends to heaven, but he can't wait until he is about to pass the tribulation to consider these things. Moreover, the Li family does not have a close relationship with the spirit transformation forces. When the time comes, Li Zhirui wants to observe the tribulation and learn from the experience. Dao Tong is the best candidate. Okay, Zhen Yunzi was excited to see Li Zhirui agreed, and cheered loudly, saying, please rest assured, after the matter is over, my Wanjian sect will send someone to take you home. That's not necessary. Li Zhirui shook his head. It would be faster to fly by himself than to take the spirit ship. When are you leaving? Zhen Yunzi wanted to leave immediately, but when he thought that Li Zhixun had just returned, he was embarrassed to speak. I'm here to see the family's situation. Since you, Brother 9, are all okay, I'm relieved, Li Zhixun said softly. Although she had never met Dao Tong, she knew how much benefit Li Zhirui would bring if he saved him, so she naturally didn't want to delay. By the way, please keep Zhixun's identity a secret. After all, she offended the Eastern Domain Sword Sect back then. I think after so many years, the Sword Sect still holds a grudge and may target the Li family. Li Zhirui suddenly remembered this and reminded. Li Zhirui has been paying attention to the news in this regard. If the sword sect gives up the reward for Li Zhirui, he will definitely announce her identity as soon as possible. After all, Li Zhirui is not only a divine transformation cultivator, but also an elder who controls a sword vein in the 10,000 sword sect. If the news is announced, it will definitely bring some benefits to the Li family. But what I didn't expect was that after so many years, the sword sect is still brooding over it and has not turned the page. There is no way, I can only continue to conceal it. Who made the Li family weak? If the Li family has more than a dozen spirits, even if compared with the sword sect, there is still a big gap in strength, but at least they have the power to resist and will not be afraid of the sword sect's targeting and suppression. But think about it, it will be soon. The 3 spirit beasts contracted by Jiang Fengwu are now trying to break through to the 5th level. For this reason, they did not even participate in the war of the invasion of the Sea Clan, and quietly practiced in seclusion on Wangxin Island. And Li Chengsheng. In the past few years of fighting and tempering, he vaguely touched the threshold of the spirit realm. Of course, this does not mean that Li Chengsheng will be able to break through the spirit realm immediately, it is just an opportunity. Whether it can be seized, and how long it will take to break through after seizing, everything is still unknown. In fact, not only Li Chengsheng, but also the cultivators who survived the war have made considerable progress during this period. In the next period of time, the entire cultivation world will explode rapidly, and a large number of cultivators will usher in breakthroughs. Apart from anything else, thunder tribulations will appear very frequently on Wangxin Island. It is normal to think about it. Being able to survive in a battle like a millstone of heaven and earth, both the magic power and the Tao heart have been greatly tempered. After the war, with the help of various spiritual objects, their cultivation will naturally improve. Speaking of which, hearing Li Zhirui's words, Zhen Yunzi was slightly stunned, but soon reacted. With the current strength of the Li family, it is indeed impossible to offend the sword sect. Just as he was about to speak, he heard Li Zhirui say, "There is one more thing. Regardless of whether the demon species can be solved, I hope your sect will not spread my identity." "Don't worry, sir, I will explain it to the elders," Zhen Yunzi promised. "Thank you, fellow Taoist." The relationship between Wanjian sect and Jian sect is tense, and the Li family and Jian sect are both in the East region. No one dares to guarantee what they will do to the Li family after knowing what Li Zhirui did. Fortunately, Zhen Yunzi did not bring his disciples when he went to Wangxin Island. However, on the main island, their conversation was seen by many gods, and the news was not completely blocked. So the 2 of them also played a drama. Zhen Yunzi soared into the sky and quickly left Wangxin Island. After returning to the main island, he said indignantly, "That Li Zhirui is really ungrateful. The dignified elder of Wanjian sect, personally came to invite him, but he dared not give me face. Dao, you don't know. Li Zhirui is so ungrateful." "That's right, our sect and family are also quite famous in the central region, and he is also a god-transforming elder, but he just doesn't want to make a move." Some god-transforming cultivators who asked Li Zhirui to make a move but were rejected, all spoke up to agree. "Humph," Zhen Yunzi snorted coldly, "I think he is just a charlatan who is swindling and cheating. He has been refusing to make a move because he is afraid of being exposed. Too much is as bad as too little." Zhen Yunzi said a few words and left the crowd, preparing to gather disciples to return to the sect at the same time. On Wangxin Island, Li Zhirui was explaining what had just happened to Jiang Fengwu and others. "Brother Jiu, are you going to the Wanjian sect in the central region now?" "Yes, you have heard that the Taoist master has a short lifespan, so we can't delay." Li Zhirui nodded. "I want to go too." Zhao King was worried that Li Zhirui would be in danger alone. "You should stay in the family. Feng Peng still needs you to protect him." Speaking of which, Zhao King and Feng Peng have been Taoist partners for so many years, but they have not given birth to a child. As the 2 of them become stronger, the possibility of them having children becomes lower. Li Zhirui refused to follow everyone and asked them to practice well in the family and improve their cultivation, and not miss this post-war welfare period. In fact, Li Zhirui agreed to Zhen Yunzi because the post-war welfare period had little effect on him. Li Zhirui had just broken through not long ago, and it was impossible for him to improve his cultivation level by retreating. However, during the war, one fight after another allowed his realm to be quickly consolidated and his magic power to be tempered. Let Li Zhixun wait for a while. And Li Zhirui entered the purification spirit realm and picked various purification spirit objects. Then he joined her and went to the place he had discussed with Zhen Yunzi, and boarded a huge spirit ship. Before that, Li Zhirui had changed his appearance. This is Master Linkang, a good friend of Master's Henjing. He has a healing treasure in his hand, which is expected to cure Master Dao Tong's injury, so he will return to the sect with us. The other gods on the spirit ship were surprised and looked at him with curious eyes. They all knew how difficult it was to cure Master Dao Tong's injury. How could a lonely master in the sect make friends with such a talented person? Li Zhirui nodded to several people with a faint smile, and then went directly into the cabin. The other cultivators on the spirit ship asked about Li Zhirui's identity, and Zhen Yunzi pretended to know nothing and sent them away. I hope that Master's Henjing, this brother, can really cure Master Dao Tong's injury. Zhen Yunzi looked at the void in front of him with unfocused eyes, praying devoutly in his heart. Chapter 884, Decay. Just as Li Zhirui, Li Zhixun and Zhen Yunzi were on their way, Wanxin Island had completed the statistics of all the war situations. After the war, hundreds of Li family members died, and even more were injured. Almost everyone was injured. In addition, tens of millions of spiritual stones, a large number of spiritual pills, and talismans were paid. Even for durable magic tools, the Li family also refined thousands of pieces. It cost a lot, and the income was quite a lot. If all the spiritual materials taken from various water monsters were refined into spiritual objects and sold, the expenses could be immediately covered, and there would even be a surplus. It was a pity that the war had just ended, and the price of the spiritual objects refined by the relevant spiritual materials was lower than usual. Fortunately, the Li family had a sealed spirit treasure box, which could greatly slow down the speed at which the spiritual object's spiritual power dissipated, so they were not in a hurry to sell the spiritual objects. Instead, they bought spiritual materials at low prices in the market, preparing to make a fortune in the future. That is to say, the Li family has the current strength. If there were no Li Zhirui and other gods, even if there was a soul-sealing treasure box, they would not dare to be so ostentatious. In the next period of time, it is very likely that several members of the family will break through the tribulation at the same time. You must arrange their retreat locations and not get too close to each other, Li Mingzi warned seriously. Don't let people not die in the thunder tribulation, but be affected by the clan members, resulting in the death of two clan members who obviously have the potential to break through. Got it? The matter is of great importance, and the elders dare not ignore this issue. I'm one step behind again. Li Chengshuo looked at the cave with the stone door tightly closed and sighed. In this battle, her cultivation level also improved, saving several years of cultivation time, but compared with Li Chengsheng, Li Chengshuo was not as happy as before. Li Chengsheng is about to launch an attack on the god. No. I must not fall too far behind, especially behind Li Chengshuo. Li Xiangxin, Li Mingyao and other juniors made rapid progress, which gave her a great sense of urgency. After spending more than half a year on the spirit ship, Li Zhirui finally stepped on the ground. Your Excellency Linkang, in front of the mountain gate of Wanjian sect, there were already several gods waiting here. When they saw Li Zhirui, they bowed their heads and greeted him. It was Zhen Yunzi who, when he was still thousands of miles away from the mountain gate, used the communication formation on the spirit ship to report the relevant situation to the Wanjian sect and several teachers of Zhenai Sword Vein. The gods who greeted Li Zhirui were all Zhen Yunzi's nephews, and they were also the true disciples of his Zhenai Sword Vein. Li Zhirui envied the foundation and strength of Wanjian sect from the bottom of his heart. How long would it take for the Li family to have 3 or 4 generations of gods gathered together? Moreover, this is not Wanjian sect, but one of its inheritances. You don't have to do this. Li Zhirui didn't expect them to make such a big fuss. He just wanted to come quietly and low-key, and then leave quietly and low-key. Sir, please follow me. Zhen Yunzi led the way. And Li Zhirui and Li Zhixun followed behind. Soon, the three of them entered an ancient and elegant hall, where 4 powerful people with auras like the abyss sat. Li Zhirui of the Li family of Wanxin Island greets all the seniors. Li Zhixun and Zhen Yunzi also greeted each other. Then Li Zhirui knew that the one in the middle was the uncle of Dao Tong's previous generation, and also the Defang with the highest seniority in the Zhenai Sword Vein. The one on the left is the current head of the Wanjian sect, and the one on the right is a powerful person of the Dao generation of the Zhenai Sword Vein. Young friend, are you sure you can dissolve the demon seed in Dao Tong's Danshan? Defang asked in an old voice. Li Zhirui said calmly, I haven't met Senior Dao Tong yet, So I don't know how he is doing, so I dare not give any guarantee. Ha ha ha, you are honest, Defin laughed. What spiritual objects do you need to help you? Purifying spiritual objects, the higher the grade, the better. As soon as Li Zhirui finished speaking, 2 spiritual lights flew out of the hands of the headmaster, and the great man on the right also gave 2 spiritual objects. This was all what Zhen Yunzi had told them before. If you can solve the demon seed in Brother Dao Tong's body, our Wanjian sect will be grateful, the headmaster promised. You can go to the inner storehouse to choose 3 spiritual objects, and Wanjian sect will also agree to 3 reasonable conditions proposed by you. Although Li Zhixun had told Li Zhirui before that these were the rewards that had been announced long ago, he was really relieved when he heard what the headmaster said in person. I also want to watch Senior Dao Tong transcend the tribulation and ascend to heaven. Li Zhirui proposed an additional condition that was not excessive. Okay, Da Feng nodded and said, time waits for no one. Please act as soon as possible. Let's go now. Although they had been traveling for more than half a year, Li Zhirui didn't need to worry about it, so he was in very good condition now. Xianian, take Li Zhirui with you. Yes. Ancestor, the 3 slowly left the hall. Can this incarnation from a remote place really cure Brother Dao Tong? The great man who said nothing expressed his doubts. Da Feng said slowly, Dao Tong's lifespan is less than 10 years, which is less than that of me, an old Taoist. Why not let him try? Maybe the purification law he has mastered is really effective. After flying for a quarter of an hour, the 3 arrived at their destination. But Li Zhirui looked up and found that there was a mountain with no visible edge above him. He was amazed at how high this mountain was. Is it the spiritual realm in front of us? Li Zhirui looked at the spiritual realm portal that was sealed with multiple seals, and a gleam of light flashed in his eyes. There are several restrictions, which are almost the same as those he found when he studied the sealed soul treasure chests. Zhen Yunzi explained, the soul realm has the effect of concealing the breath, but there will still be leaks. To be on the safe side, the sect has arranged various restrictions here. In fact, like Dao Tong, who can obviously try to ascend but dare not cross the tribulation, will hide in the soul realm to avoid the detection of the heavenly way. Of course, Dao Tong is because of the special situation. So when I open the soul realm, we must go in as soon as possible. Got it. Then Zhen Yunzi took out a sword order and activated it with mana. The restrictions disappeared one by one, and the entrance to the soul realm was revealed. The 3 of them flashed in, and the next moment, the restrictions appeared again, completely sealing the soul realm to ensure that there would be no leakage of breath. Then they saw an old man with white hair, a face full of ravines, and a decayed aura in the soul realm. Master Dao Tong, how come you have aged so much? Zhen Yunzi was shocked. When he came to visit Dao Tong a few years ago, his condition was not so bad. How could there be such a big change in just a few years? It's Xianian. The old man woke up from his nap, his voice was weak, but there was no self-pity at all. Chapter 885 Fight. Uncle Dao Tong. You? Zhen Yunzi's voice trembled. Looking at Dao Tong's current appearance, his lifespan might be less than 10 years. Dao Tong's situation was different from that of a normal cultivator whose lifespan was about to end. His condition was caused by injuries. The worse the physical condition, the faster the demons would invade, and the faster Dao Tong's lifespan would decrease. Ho ha, are you scared by the old Taoist's appearance? Dao Tong laughed out loud without caring. Although his voice was old, it was full of heroic meaning. Uncle Dao Tong, I have invited a spirit to come and treat you this time. Zhen Yunzi changed the subject abruptly. Is it this young friend? Li Zhirui greets the senior. Li Zhirui bowed slightly. Alice, Dao Tong sighed. He knew his body best. The demon seed had already merged into his danshan. There was no medicine or stone to cure it, and he had long given up any hope for it. The sect has spent a lot of money on me over the years, so let's just give it up. My friend, you've made this trip. Zhen Yunzi was anxious when he heard this, and hurriedly said, Uncle Master, how do you know it won't work if you don't try it? Grandfather Daffin has agreed. Uncle Master Daffin? Never mind, then please give it a try. I have a few spiritual objects that can compensate for the sect's expenses, Dao Tong said with a dull look. Li Zhirui, who had been silent beside him except for introducing himself, said, Please relax, senior, and let me check your body. Thank you, my friend. Li Zhirui mobilized his spiritual consciousness and followed the meridians into Dao Tong's danshan, and then he saw a danshan that was dyed black for most of the area. The so-called demon seed had long disappeared. Li Zhirui pondered for a moment and said, "I'm afraid I have to ask you to leave the spiritual realm." When he entered the spiritual realm, he made a special observation. The spiritual realm was full of laws for warming and healing, and the richness could easily condense yuan qi. But this means that Li Zhirui can't gather too many purification laws from heaven and earth. Although he brought a lot of purification spiritual objects, Wanjian sect was generous and gave him 4 5th-grade top-grade purification spiritual objects. Dao Tong's situation was too bad. Li Zhirui felt that relying on those spiritual objects alone might not be able to dispel the evil spirit in Danshan. No, what should I do if the breath is locked by the heavenly Dao and the ascension thunder tribulation is brought down? Zhen Yunzi immediately refused and said, "Do you have any other ways? Then we need to purify a large number of spiritual objects." Since others disagreed, Li Zhirui had to come up with a second plan that would cost more. "Okay. Please wait a moment, I will have someone send the spiritual objects to me right away." After saying that, Zhen Yunzi left in a hurry. The spiritual realm was completely sealed off, and there was no way to contact him at all, so he had to leave first. "Are you sure you can cure the old Taoist stubborn illness?" Dao Tong looked at Li Zhirui with a sharp gaze. If it was possible, who would be willing to wait for death? "I'm a little sure." Li Zhirui didn't dare to say it for sure. "What if it didn't work? If you can really cure it, from now on, you will be my Dao Tong's savior. As long as you don't violate my moral principles, you can command me." Hearing this, Li Zhirui was so scared that he waved his hands repeatedly and said hurriedly, "Senior, there is no need to do this. This is just a deal. Wanjian sect has already paid for the spiritual objects. If Li Zhirui really dared to agree to command a perfect incarnation, who is also the chief true disciple of a certain generation of Wanjian sect, then he would be an enemy of Wanjian sect. Besides, Dao Tong's lifespan is not much. In order to survive, he must fight for his life and ascend. Where can he find people at that time?" Fortunately, at this time, Zhen Yunzi came back with a large number of purification spiritual objects. "Thank you, fellow Taoist and Hixuan, for helping me destroy these spiritual objects so that I can extract the purification law from them." With help, Li Zhirui naturally would not do everything by himself. If outsiders saw this scene, I don't know how they would scold Li Zhirui and the other two for squandering the gifts of heaven. From the 5th grade superb spiritual objects to the 1st grade inferior spiritual objects, there are nearly 1,000 spiritual objects. All of them turned into fragments, and the spiritual light of the law was also extracted, becoming dim. But in the air of the spiritual realm, there was a huge ball of light like the sun suspended, emitting a bright and clear light, bright but not dazzling, and giving people a feeling of being relaxed and fresh. "Please relax your mind, senior, don't resist, it may be a little painful during the process," Li Zhirui reminded him. The demonic energy in Dao Tong's body has been integrated with Danshan. The process of dispelling the demonic energy is also attacking Danshan to a certain extent, so he will naturally feel pain. Of course, this attack is not strong, and it will not cause any damage to Danshan, but the process will inevitably bring some pain. "Okay." Li Zhirui exhaled a long breath of turbid air, held a few top-grade Huling Bao pills in his mouth, and began to mobilize the purification light ball with all his heart. Like the flow of Taiyuan, the thick light fell like silk, sank into Dao Tong's mouth, and entered his Danshan under the isolation and guidance of Li Zhirui's magic power. The reason why the magic power was used to isolate the purification law was naturally because they were worried that the law would dissipate in the process and fail to completely enter the Danshan to dispel the evil spirit. From this moment on, Dao Tong's Danshan seemed to have become a battlefield, with the dark evil spirit and the pure white purification law fighting each other, constantly colliding and fighting. Although the purification law was effective and successfully dispelled some evil spirits, it did not have an advantage in number and was soon offset by the evil spirit. But with Li Zhirui's mobilization and control, the purification laws in the Danshan became more and more numerous, and more flexible, able to dissipate the evil spirit at a relatively low cost. Seeing this, Li Zhirui also breathed a sigh of relief, as long as it worked. However, as the master of the battlefield, Dao Tong's situation was not so good, and waves of severe pain came from his Danshan. Fortunately, after enduring the pain brought by the evil spirit for many years, Dao Tong's will was extremely tenacious and did not show any signs of it. Not good. Li Zhirui originally thought that the purification law was enough, but as time went on, more and more purification laws were consumed to offset the evil spirit. If this situation continued, these purification laws might not be enough. Dao. The purification rules are not enough. Go get some more purifying spiritual objects. At the same time, we need more cultivators to help destroy spiritual objects, Li Zhirui said urgently. Zhen Yunzi's face changed slightly, and he flew out of the spiritual realm at the fastest speed. It's still not enough, the elder in charge of spiritual objects said in surprise. You know, Zhen Yunzi just took away more than half of the purified spiritual objects on Zhenai Mountain. It hasn't been long since then, and he came again. Hurry up and get the spiritual objects. Zhen Yunzi didn't want to waste time. He was just on his way to the warehouse, and he also contacted several fellow apprentices to destroy spiritual objects. In less than half a quarter of an hour, Zhen Yunzi brought the spiritual objects and fellow apprentices into the spiritual realm. Looking at the light ball that had shrunk by more than half, Zhen Yunzi hurriedly asked, Sir, are you going to destroy the spiritual objects now? Chapter 886 Seal. Li Zhirui, who was standing by, had already raised the sword in his hand and said, Brother Jiu has urged me several times. Hurry up and take out the spiritual objects. In the half a quarter of an hour when Zhen Yunzi was not in the spiritual realm, Li Zhirui had asked 3 times. The reason for this urgency was that Li Zhirui had underestimated the demonic energy before. At the beginning, those demonic energies were indeed easy to offset and dissolve, but as the demonic energy on the surface was dispelled and the accumulated demonic energy deep inside was exposed, the purification law consumed was greatly increased. If it was in the outside world, Li Zhirui could still gather the laws from heaven and earth, but this was in the spiritual realm of the healing law, and the purification law was too little. Li Zhirui spent a lot of energy, and he might not be able to gather 10 strands of laws. In view of this, he did not dare to use the purification law to confront the demonic energy head-on, but tried to find a way to draw them out of the Danshan, and after no longer gathering with a large amount of demonic energy, he immediately urged the purification law to consume it. If this is not done, the purification law will be consumed faster. However, in this way, Daotong will be more painful. But Li Zhirui had no better way, so he could only do this. Upon hearing this, Zhen Yunzi did not dare to delay and hurriedly dumped all the spiritual objects on the ground. 5 or 6 gods worked together to destroy the spiritual objects. After Li Zhirui noticed that the surrounding purification law was growing rapidly, he immediately separated a part of his mind to gather it and merge it into the light ball in the air. With a replenishment of this batch of spiritual objects, Li Zhirui breathed a sigh of relief. As time passed, the demonic energy in Daotong's body gradually dissipated. The demonic energy that originally occupied most of the Danshan was now only 1 or 2 inches in size. But before Li Zhirui could breathe a sigh of relief, he saw the origin of the remaining demonic energy and his face suddenly changed. This should be the original demon seed. After weighing it in his mind, Li Zhirui mobilized the remaining purification laws and turned it into a white lotus demon suppression ban, temporarily trapping the demon seed in it to prevent it from continuing to emit demonic energy and eroding Daotong's Danshan. After a series of operations, when Li Zhirui withdrew his consciousness, he had a splitting headache and was exhausted, and almost fell to the ground. Brother Jiu, Li Zhirui was quick to use his magic power to support the man, and asked with a worried look, Are you okay? Li Zhirui shook his head slightly and said, I have consumed too much energy and I am a little exhausted. I will be fine after a while, sir. Master Daotong. Zhen Yunzi looked uneasy and asked with a little expectation. It is not completely cured. I underestimated the strength of the demon seed. I can only clear the demon energy in the Danshan and temporarily seal the demon seed with a ban. Even if Li Zhirui wanted to hold on, in his current state, he might get himself into trouble. Can you deal with that demon seed? I need more purifying spiritual objects, and I also need to take a good rest. Li Zhirui suddenly said, Oh, right. Senior Daotong is old after all, and he needs to rest for a while, otherwise I'm worried that he can't hold on. Thank you for your hard work, sir. Zhen Yunzi turned to a spirit and said, Junior brother Zhenji, you take you and uncle out first. Li Zhirui and Li Zhirui followed Zhenji out of the spiritual realm, and Zhen Yunzi hurried up and carefully checked Daotong's condition. It was found that Daotong was indeed injured, but the mana flowing in the meridians became pure, which showed that Li Zhirui's treatment was indeed effective. Finally, he went to Danshan to take a look. A very conspicuous white lotus sealed a group of dark demonic energy. The demonic energy was spreading outward, trying to break through the prison of the white lotus. Please take good care of Uncle Dao Tong. I will report this to my great-grandfather and the headmaster." After saying that, Zhen Yunzi turned into a beam of spiritual light and disappeared. "You mean Dao Tong's condition has indeed improved a lot?" Seeing Zhen Yunzi nod, Da Feng asked again, "Did that young friend say when he would take action?" "No, I think his condition is very bad," Da Feng decisively ordered. "Then collect more purifying spiritual objects first, in case of emergency, and let Dao Tong recover from his injury. If there is none in Zhenai Mountain, go to other sword veins to exchange. For this, I have to trouble the headmaster to come forward." The headmaster said in a gentle voice, "My great-grandfather's condition is serious. If Uncle Dao Tong can recover, it will also be good for the sect. What's more, the Zhenai sword vein has taken out spiritual objects to exchange, and it is not for nothing." With the help of the headmaster, almost all the purifying spiritual objects of the entire Wanjian sect have gathered on Zhenai Mountain, and they have also paid a huge price, almost emptying most of the Zhenai sword vein's warehouse. In order to save Dao Tong, so many spiritual objects were spent, plus the expenses in the previous years. There were already voices of dissatisfaction within this Zhenai sword cultivation. And not only the low-level disciples, but even those who had reached the state of transformation had opinions. Defin, who was old and wise, naturally saw all of this. He also knew that if it succeeded, with Dao Tong's strength, he would be able to successfully ascend to heaven, and all kinds of dissatisfaction and opinions would naturally disappear. At the same time, it would also be able to resolve his knot in his heart. Perhaps by then his realm would be able to move forward one step, and he would also be able to trigger the thunder tribulation of ascension. That's right. The reason why Dao Tong ended up in such a situation was all caused by Defin. Back then, Defin was training in the void, fighting for a piece of Tebe Jinjing, but unexpectedly it was a trap set by a demon cultivator, and he couldn't escape no matter how hard he tried. When he was about to fall, Dao Tong appeared. At that time, Dao Tong had just broken through to the late stage of transformation, so how could he be the opponent of several old demons who had been in the late stage of transformation for many years? It was because those demon cultivators were mostly consumed by Defin, and there was another chaos storm, that they were able to escape. But Dao Tong had been planted with a demon seed by the demon cultivators, but they didn't know it. As Dao Tong's strength grew, the demon seed absorbed a lot of mana, and then it was revealed. But at this time, it was too late to eliminate the demon seed. This is why Defin pushed it with all his strength, but everything had to be done to save Dao Tong. If it fails, the Zhenai sword vein may experience a turmoil. All intelligent creatures have 7 emotions and 6 desires. Those gods who use this to cause trouble just want to fight for power and get more spiritual objects. I'm not dead yet. I haven't made a move for hundreds of years. Have you forgotten how sharp the sword in my hand is? You know, the reason why Defin was ambushed by the demon cultivators back then was because he hated evil and killed a large number of demon cultivators with a 3-foot green sword in his hand. He was jointly issued the highest wanted order by several major forces of the demon path. Unfortunately, the ambush did not kill Defin, but completely angered him, and he ran to the western regions to kill a lot. Time passed, and in a blink of an eye it was a month later. In fact, it only took Li Zhirui 5 days to fully recover, but the reason he hadn't taken action was because Dao Tong's condition was not very good and he needed more time to recover. Chapter 887 Treasure House. For this, Li Zhirui waited for more than a month. After confirming that Dao Tong was in good health yesterday, he could finally take action. Thank you for your hard work. Zhen Yunzi brought several fellow apprentices and entered the spiritual realm with Li Zhirui. Of course, Li Zhixun was among them. Li Zhirui originally wanted to say that it would be more convenient and less expensive to treat him in the outside world, but seeing their attitude, he knew that they would not agree, so he naturally did not waste his breath. Taoist, you are too kind to ask for money to do things. Li Zhirui walked in front of Dao Tong and said, Senior, I am not completely sure that I can remove the demon seed, but I will definitely do my best, whether it succeeds or not. Taoist, just do your best, Dao Tong said calmly. It must be said that Dao Tong's state of mind is extremely strong. Facing the great terror of life and death, he can remain calm. Li Zhirui bowed slightly, stepped back a few steps, and said to Zhen Yunzi and others, Thank you for your hard work. Let's get started now. One by one, the purifying spiritual objects were violently dumped on the ground, and for a moment, the precious light shone brightly, forcing Li Zhirui and others to put away their eyes. Crack, with the sound of a spiritual object breaking, it soon expanded several times and echoed throughout the spiritual realm. The purification law in the spiritual realm became more and more intense. Under Li Zhirui's control, it was like a thick, clear white stream of water flowing directly into Dao Tong's danshan. Zzz. The water rushed towards the demon seed. When the law and the demon seed came into contact, it was like a drizzle hitting a raging fire, constantly evaporating and disappearing. But the drizzle was continuous and continued to wash the demon seed. The already weak demon seed was gradually extinguished a little, and the danshan occupied by the demon energy was further reduced. Li Zhirui was not satisfied with this achievement. He remained calm and dispelled the demon seed like a frog in warm water. Everything was going very smoothly, but suddenly, an accident occurred. The demon seed became extremely irritable and full of aggression. It began to actively attack the purification law, while also emitting a strong demon energy, infecting the nearby danshan. Li Zhirui was delighted, and the trapped beast still fought. If you think about it carefully, it will be normal. No matter how powerful the demon seed is, it is rootless in Dao Tong's danshan, especially the demonic energy on the periphery has been dispelled. Not to mention that this Hanai sword vein has paid a lot of purification spiritual objects for this. The resources consumed twice before and after can be piled up many Yuanying monks. But this is hard for Dao Tong. The demon seed is rampant in the danshan, and he is the one who suffers. He gritted his teeth and endured the piercing pain. Except for the cold sweat all over his body, it is impossible to see how much pain he is suffering. Time passed bit by bit. Under the offset of a large number of purification laws, the demon seed became smaller and smaller, and finally disappeared completely. It's okay. Seeing that Zhen Yunzi and others were still destroying spiritual objects, Li Zhirui hurriedly called for a stop. Sir, Master Uncle, fortunately, he has fulfilled his mission, thank you. If it weren't for your help. Thank you. Zhen Yunzi was so excited that he was a little incoherent. Li Zhirui was modest. Seeing that there were still a lot of purification laws left, he put them into Dao Tong's body and helped him solve other problems in his body. After some operations, Dao Tong's body became a little stronger, and the decay was not so strong. However, there was no change in lifespan. It does not mean that lifespan can be restored after the injury is cured. Therefore, Dao Tong still has less than 10 years of lifespan, and he must successfully ascend to the upper realm during this period of time, otherwise he will die. Let Senior Dao Tong have a good rest. Although Li Zhirui consumed a lot, he was not as exhausted as the first time. After the group left the spiritual realm, Zhen Yunzi asked a junior brother to send Li Zhirui back to the guest cave, and he himself told the good news to Defin's great master. Good. Defin was stunned when he heard the news, and then he was overjoyed, laughing and cheering, and as he laughed, the knot that had troubled him for countless years was broken bit by bit. The aura of the whole person suddenly changed, as if a peerless sword was unsheathed, and the terrifying sword intent soared into the sky, tearing the clouds above the 9 heavens. The next moment, all the momentum and sword intent disappeared without a trace, as if the scene just now was just an illusion of Zhen Yunzi. That is, but how could such momentum and sword intent be hidden from others? All the cultivators who have achieved success in cultivation in the huge Wanjian sect looked over. Has the great-grandfather Defin been able to break through his heart knot? On Wanjian Mountain, the head of the sect put down the jade slip in his hand and said to himself thoughtfully, it seems that the problem of the great-grandfather Dao Tong has been solved. It can be predicted that the Wanjian sect will usher in 2 ascension thunder tribulations in the near future. If both are successful, it will greatly enhance the reputation and prestige of the Wanjian sect, which will be conducive to recruiting disciples. Even Li Zhirui, who is on the distant Ying Peak, felt the horror of this sword intent. It is worthy of being a first-class sect in the central region. Another great power who has achieved the perfection of the spirit transformation, Li Zhirui said with emotion. This is my warrant. Tomorrow you will take that little friend Li to the inner storehouse to select 3 spiritual objects, and ask him if he has any other requests, Da Feng said in a gentle voice. Yes, Zhen Yunzi hesitated for a moment, then bowed and agreed, and slowly left the hall. At this time, Zhen Yunzi found that he was sweating all over. The momentum of his master's uncle just now almost swallowed him up. If Zhen Yunzi was not a god after all, and a sword cultivator with a strong heart of Tao, I am afraid that his heart of Tao would be shattered when facing Da Feng's sword intent at close range. The next morning, Zhen Yunzi knocked on the door of the cave where Li Zhirui lived. "Sir, if you have nothing to do today, why don't you follow me to the inner storehouse to select spiritual objects?" Li Zhirui's eyes lit up when he heard this. He didn't expect that the reward would be in his hands so soon. Although he was not worried that the Wanjian sect would go back on its word, it would be easy to do if they deliberately delayed for a while. Following Zhen Yunzi in the Wanjian sect, Li Zhirui had time to appreciate the scenery along the road. "We're here." Li Zhirui looked carefully and saw a heavy stone door covered with prohibitions. Although he didn't sense any monks guarding nearby, Li Zhirui was sure that once he had the idea of attacking, a large number of incarnations would jump out in an instant. And just the stone door alone brought great pressure to Li Zhirui. Zhen Yunzi offered a token, and the stone door slowly opened. The huge space was filled with jade racks. At a glance, each jade rack had at least thousands of jade boxes. Li Zhirui calculated in his mind and was shocked. There were at least tens of millions of spiritual objects. Although there was a jade box blocking it, it was not convenient for Li Zhirui to use his spiritual sense to forcibly explore, but it was at least a third-level spiritual object. "Sir, this is just the outer warehouse. Please follow me," Zhen Yunzi reminded softly. Chapter 888 Persistence. After Li Zhirui entered the inner storehouse, he realized what the foundation was. The space of the inner storehouse was not much smaller than that of the outer storehouse, and even if there was a jade box sealed, Li Zhirui could still sense the rich treasure light. You can wander around at will. There is a label and a general introduction in front of each jade box, Zhen Yunzi reminded, but don't touch the jade box, otherwise it will trigger the alarm. "I know," Li Zhirui nodded. He didn't look at them one by one, but strode through the passages and wrote down the contents of all the signboards with his spiritual sense. Then he walked to the door again, closed his eyes, and began to select spiritual objects. It was not until this time that Li Zhirui knew how many spiritual objects there were in the inner storehouse, 2,988. This is a very amazing number, because most of them are 5th-level spiritual objects, and there are a small number of 4th-level and 6th-level spiritual objects. The scarcity of 6th-level spiritual objects is understandable. After all, Zuanetun realm is just a small world, and normally it can't breed 6th-level spiritual objects. As for why the 4th-level spiritual objects are so rare, it is because only the 4th-level spiritual objects that are precious and rare enough are qualified to be placed in the inner storehouse. It took more than an hour for Li Zhirui to select 10 treasures that are beneficial to his own cultivation, from nearly 3,000 spiritual objects. "Dao, can I take a look at those spiritual objects and then choose?" Zhen Yunzi thought for a moment and said, "If there are not many, I can." Shiangxin Wood, Longsli, Kingxin Lotus. Li Zhirui reported 10 names in a row, and said a little embarrassedly, "Sorry to bother you, Dao, it's okay." Zhen Yunzi took the 10 spiritual objects in his hand through the token, opened them one by one for Li Zhirui to observe closely. Weighing the pros and cons, he said, "I want Kingxin Lotus, Ziffin Grass and Shiangxin Wood." Kingxin Lotus and Ziffin Grass are both 5th-level spiritual objects that Li Zhirui is going to use to deal with the internal disaster of wind and fire. Kingxin Lotus can not only prevent yin fire, but also make the mind clearer and calmer. Ziffin Grass is just like its name. It can stop the wind and has a certain weakening effect on yin wind. Shiangxin Wood is also a 5th-level spiritual object, but its effect is quite special. After scraping the wood and burning it, people can quickly enter a state of meditation, and their minds will be as calm as the heart of heaven, which is convenient for cultivators to comprehend the laws. However, it is not without disadvantages. If Shiangxin Wood is used for too long, it will cause confusion and gradually lose emotions. Li Zhirui did not deliberately choose high-level spiritual objects. After all, no matter how high the spiritual object is, he can't use it or the effect is not good. It is better to take the most suitable one. Upon hearing this, Zhen Yunzi immediately pushed the jade box that sealed the 3 spiritual objects in front of Li Zhirui, and then used his hand to lift the ben. "Dao can put it away now." Li Zhirui took advantage of this gap to plant Shiangxin Wood in the space. There is another very important reason why he chose Shiangxin Wood, that is, Shiangxin Wood actually has a glimmer of life. It can be planted. This is not difficult for Li Zhirui, who has a space. In a few hundred years, he can have a lush Shiangxin Wood, but now he can only look at the bare branches. By the way, you can think about the 3 conditions when you have time. On the way back, Zhen Yunzi suddenly said. Li Zhirui said without hesitation, I have thought about it. I hope to enter the Sutra Pavilion and exchange 3 methods except those related to your sect's inheritance. I will report to the head and the elders and follow their instructions. Although Zhen Yunzi is also a spirit transformation, he is of a younger generation, so it is naturally not his decision. In this regard, the elders also discussed it, some agreed, and some refused. Fortunately, in the end, they agreed to Li Zhirui's exchange. So, the next day after the treasure house came out, Li Zhirui followed Zhen Yunzi to the Sutra Pavilion again. The Sutra Pavilion of Wanjian sect is 9 stories high and covers an area of 3 or 4 acres. There are tens of thousands of jade slips placed in it, which dazzled Li Zhirui. This time, Li Zhirui had no way to collect and integrate the information of all the jade slips, so he could only start with the methods of the spirit transformation realm. He chose a volume of experiences of cultivation in the transformation realm, and the other 2 volumes were a 5th level pill recipe, a magical power of vertical golden light. The precious pill recorded in the pill recipe is called the 5 Elements Great Returning Pill, which is a precious pill with excellent healing effect. Even if you only have 1 breath, it can save you. The reason why Li Zhirui chose it was not because of its powerful healing effect, but because of the possibility of splitting the 5 Elements pill. After all, the 5 Elements Great Returning Pill requires too many spiritual objects. The main medicine alone requires 8 5th level spiritual medicines. If Li Zhirui can split it out, the efficacy will definitely drop, but the difficulty and cost of refining will also decrease. And the door of vertical golden light is a very good escape method magical power. It is said that if it is refined to a high level, it is not a problem to travel thousands of miles in a day. So far, except for Li Zhirui's additional request to observe Dao Tong's transcendence and ascension, he has nothing to do with the Wanjian sect, so in the following time, Li Zhirui stayed indoors and practiced hard in the cave. It was not until more than 2 months later that Zhen Yunzi came here again and knocked on Li Zhirui's door. Sir, Master Dao Tong will pass the tribulation tomorrow. I invite you to come and watch. Zhen Yunzi still maintained a respectful attitude. So fast, Li Zhirui was shocked by this speed. He originally thought that Dao Tong would pass the tribulation again after a year or 2, but it has only been more than 2 months. He was planning to find an opportunity to propose to leave the mountain gate of Wanjian sect and stay in the nearest fairy city. Although Li Zhirui is now in Yink Mountain, it is after all inside Wanjian sect and is not suitable for long-term residence. Others may not know much about Dao Tong's physical condition, but how could Li Zhirui, who helped him solve the demon species, not know? Because his lifespan is about to end, his body has begun to decay, and he has just undergone a treatment, and his body is deficient, which will increase the difficulty of Dao Tong's tribulation. Master Dao Tong insists on passing the tribulation tomorrow. We have repeatedly persuaded him, but he just refuses to change. Zhen Yunzi looked bitter. Li Zhirui comforted him. The senior doesn't seem like a reckless person. Since he dared to set it for tomorrow, he must have been fully confident. Don't worry, fellow Taoist, thank you for your good words. Zhen Yunzi was full of worries and didn't want to talk much. He also talked about observing the tribulation tomorrow. Because Li Zhirui saved Dao Tong's life, his position was very front and no cultivator blocked his view. After explaining, he left a body to lead the way at Mao time tomorrow, and Zhen Yunzi left in a hurry. Dao Tong's ascension thunder tribulation is not a trivial matter. The entire Wanjian sect began to operate to prevent anyone from disrupting the tribulation. There was no conversation overnight. At Mao time the next day, Zhen Yunzi appeared on time and took Li Zhirui to the tribulation site. Chapter 889 Terror. The appearance of Li Zhirui, an outsider, attracted the attention of many disciples, especially when they saw him standing at the front, where he could watch the tribulation up close. There was a lot of discussion in the crowd. Those elders knew Li Zhirui, and they nodded with a smile wherever they passed. So many people have come before it even starts. Li Zhirui was a little surprised. Zhen Yunzi smiled and explained, there has been no ascension in the sect for decades, so everyone is naturally eager. Li Zhirui was silent for a moment. It was only a few decades. In the eyes of the disciples of the Wanjian sect, it was surprisingly long. From this sentence, we can also see how profound the foundation of the Wanjian sect is. In the central region, there are several forces with similar strength to it. If we count those slightly weaker forces, doesn't it mean that there are people in the central region who go through the ascension thunder tribulation every year? After calculating in his mind, Li Zhirui was surprised. In all these years in the eastern region, he had not heard of several ascensions. You know, the ascension thunder tribulation is huge, and you can see the thunder tribulation within a radius of dozens of miles, and you can also see the thunder tribulation 100 miles away. It can't be hidden from people at all. It is indeed a place favored by heaven and where spiritual energy gathers, Li Zhirui said with a smile, referring to the Wanjian sect, which is also the central region. However, Zhen Yunzi did not think too much about it, and only thought that he was praising the Wanjian sect, and a hint of pride appeared on his face. Before they had waited for long, Dao Tong flashed out. Thank you, Dao Yao. Dao Tong saw Li Zhirui at first sight, flew in front of him, saluted solemnly, and said, I was taking the time to heal my wounds before, and did not thank Dao Yao the first time, so I came to make up for it. Senior, you are too polite. Li Zhirui was frightened and bowed quickly. In front of tens of thousands of cultivators in the Wanjian sect, how could he bear such a great gift from a chief true disciple? Regardless of whether Li Zhirui really saved Dao Tong's life, he was just a cultivator in the middle stage of the spiritualization realm in the eyes of outsiders. For a moment, the originally curious eyes became solemn and sharp, and all were applied to Li Zhirui. Haha, Dao Tong is rude, I hope you can forgive me. Defin saw Li Zhirui's embarrassment and smiled to help him out. Senior, you are joking. With Defin's seniority, he came out to help, which really made Li Zhirui feel better. Dao Tong, prepare to cross the calamity. Yes, uncle. Dao Tong flew back to the top of the mountain, standing proudly in the clouds. After closing his eyes for a moment, his whole body was full of momentum, soaring into the sky, like a sharp sword about to pierce the sky. Boom! The sky made a loud bang, and the calamity clouds rolled in, wantonly devouring the spiritual energy of dozens of miles to strengthen itself. The dark clouds filled more than 10 miles, thunder roared, and lightning ran, like a doomsday scene. Even dozens of miles away, where Li Zhirui and other cultivators were, the sky became dark and gloomy. Crack! After only half a quarter of an hour, the first calamity thunder was brewing. The huge lightning column was like a prehistoric beast, trying to devour Dao Tong. Dao Tong raised the King Fang in his hand. Just like swinging the sword on weekdays, raised it and slashed, and the sword energy followed and collided with the thunder. The sword energy that seemed to have no thread at all, actually shattered the thunder easily. Li Zhirui was surprised. The sound was silent, and the elephant was invisible. Dao Tong's swordsmanship must have reached the pinnacle. Is this Dao Tong's ability alone, or do all the people who ascended from the Wanjian sect have such means? Li Zhirui saw the surprise on the faces of Zhen Yunzi and others with his peripheral vision, and he understood that it should be the former. But think about Dao Tong's torture of demonic energy for hundreds of years. His will was tempered like gold, and he couldn't practice, so he could only comprehend the laws and swordsmanship, which created such a skill. If other cultivators can do it easily, then what is the suffering that Dao Tong has suffered over the years? What do you mean by the pride of heaven? Dao Tong is the chief true disciple of the Wanjian sect, how could his qualifications be bad? Thousands of thoughts, but it's just a moment of reality. The next few thunderbolts were easily shattered by Dao Tong, and it seemed that they were not thunderbolts of ascension. The monks watching were all shocked, but more or less. Is this really thunderbolt of ascension? A Jindan disciple raised the question in everyone's mind. He had paid a lot to survive the Jindan thunderbolt. How could it be so easy for the thunderbolt of ascension, which was dozens or hundreds of times stronger than this? Of course, he also knew that this was a human problem. Too amazing, Li Zhirui did not see any increase in the difficulty of surviving the thunderbolt after the decay of the flesh in Dao Tong, which was simply against common sense. Boom boom, before everyone could react, it was already the last two thunderbolts. Dao Tong was solemn for the first time, but the sword in his hand was still plain and simple, without any showmanship, just a simple slash down. The sword energy collided with the thunderbolt, and the thunderbolt was no longer easily cut off. The lightning splashed, like colorful fireworks, and disappeared as quickly as the fireworks. The last thunderbolt had been brewing for a full quarter of an hour. When it fell, the sky seemed to have opened a big hole, and thunder poured down, forming a thunderbolt waterfall. Dao Tong's eyes were shining, and he looked like he had met an opponent. He became very excited, and the sword in his hand shone brightly, but it emitted a seemingly ordinary sword energy. However, the 3-foot sword energy rushed away and was swallowed by the waterfall in an instant, but Dao Tong turned his hand and took the sword back. The next moment, In the surprised eyes of everyone, the waterfall banged and turned into lightning and spread in all directions. After the dazzling lightning dissipated, those low-level monks saw that there was still a sword energy in the sky that exuded a terrifying aura. Wow! The crowd burst into a burst of surprise and cheers. Li Zhirui looked at the sword energy with a solemn expression. He found that if he faced this sword energy, there would be no possibility of survival except hiding in space. One sword can kill a god. And judging from Dao Tong's state, this is probably not his final killer move, but a killing move that can be used in succession. Huh? Li Zhirui murmured, why hasn't the inner demon come yet, if there is no inner demon? It is not considered a successful thunder tribulation. Since you are unwilling to show up, just die, Dao Tong said coldly, and then he saw him use his fingers as swords, cut out several sword ki, and flew towards somewhere in the void. The sword ki intertwined into a sword net, trapping a ball of black air in it. And this is the inner demon that should have obstructed Dao Tong. The sword net closed inwards, and the inner demon wailed and struggled, turning into a wisp of black smoke and dissipated. Can you still survive the inner demon tribulation like this? Li Zhirui was really eye-opening after watching this thunder tribulation. The inner demon was actually scared. He didn't dare to show up, but it was a pity that he couldn't escape death in the end. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 890 Thanks. After Dao Tong successfully passed the Ascension Thunder Tribulation, a spiritual light descended from the sky. In an instant, the immortal air filled the air, the sky was full of flowers, and the ground was full of golden lotuses. A mysterious Tai Chi golden bridge connecting the two worlds appeared under Dao Tong's feet. Dao Tong raised his foot and walked forward, flying upward along the guiding light. Just as Dao Tong walked to the middle of the golden bridge, two spiritual lights flew out of his hands, one fell into Li Zhirui's hands, and the other fell into Defin's hands. Please accept this thank you gift, Taoist friend, don't refuse. Dao Tong's hearty laughter rang in the air. Dao Ao, see you in the upper world in the future. The laughter echoed for a long time. The surrounding Shinho monks looked at the jade slip in Li Zhirui's hand with curious eyes, guessing what was engraved inside. Since it is Dao Tong's thank you gift, you can accept it, Defin joked. Even if you want to refuse, you can't find Dao Tong now. With Defin's words, others had no way to ask for the jade slip in Li Zhirui's hand. Then I will respectfully obey your command. Li Zhirui bowed slightly and put the jade slip away. The thunder tribulation dissipated, and everyone left naturally. Li Zhirui found Zhen Yunzi and said, please send me out of the mountain gate. I have been away from home for many days, and I have to rush back as soon as possible. You have just observed the thunder tribulation. Why don't you stay in the sect for a few more days and digest it before leaving? Zhen Yunzi advised. But Li Zhirui had made up his mind, so Zhen Yunzi had to take him away. In fact, as Zhen Yunzi said, after observing this thunder tribulation, Li Zhirui not only had a clear understanding of the Ascension Thunder Tribulation, but also had some gains in cultivation, which should indeed be digested as soon as possible. But he stayed in Wanjian sect for too long. Especially with a thank you gift given by Dao Tong in front of everyone, it will definitely arouse the covetousness of a group of people. Even if Defeng spoke up, he could not resist the greed of the crowd. If a conflict breaks out between the two sides, there is no doubt that Wanjian sect will definitely not stand on Li Zhirui's side. So while the relationship between the two sides is still good and before it becomes bitter, leave as soon as possible to maintain a good relationship. As for the perception, with a space in hand, after Li Zhirui left the mountain gate of Wanjian sect, he just found a place where no one was and entered the space to comprehend. Brother Jiu, have a safe journey. Li Zhixuan was a little reluctant, but she was not too sad. As a cultivator, it is normal to be together less and apart more. Practice well. Keep a good heart of Taoism. A jade box suddenly appeared in Li Zhirui's hand and he handed it to Li Zhixuan. These are some precious pills I refined, but secretly transmitted the voice. This is a special soul-sealing jade box that can prolong the preservation of spiritual objects. There are 3 white lotus seeds that I have repeatedly washed with a law of purification. It should help you dissolve some evil spirits. The genuine soul-sealing jade box is too big and conspicuous. This is what Zhang Fengwu comprehended based on the restrictions of the Jade Box after breaking through the spirit transformation. Although the effect is not as good as the original, it is much better than the ordinary Jade Box. One more thing. Try not to choose the 5 mixed realms when ascending. After Daquing broke through, the newly awakened blood inheritance told him that the 5 mixed realms were frequently involved in wars, and the strength of the cultivators was not the strongest. Of course, if the Wanjian sect established a sect in the 5 mixed realms, Li Zhirui would not be so dangerous after ascending. With the protection of the master and the sect, I've made a note. After the cultivators of almost all forces ascended, they could not contact the original sect, and even the life cards left behind would be invalid due to the barrier of the 2 worlds. Therefore, even a large force like the Wanjian sect did not have much information about the 5 mixed realms. The Li family was able to know it all because of the blood inheritance awakened by the contracted spirit beast, which was the only aspect that the Li family was ahead of the major forces. However, this was not stable, because the blood of the spirit beast was too complicated, and it was unknown how many ancestors there were, so except for the most basic ones, such as the cultivation method, the other inheritances were random. Just like Xiao Qing and Xiao Kang did not know the news of the 5 mixed realms after they broke through the 5th level. After saying goodbye to Li Zhirui and Zhen Yanzi, Li Zhirui flew to a remote mountain forest and used his spiritual sense to explore. After confirming that no one was nearby, he immediately flashed into the space and began to comprehend the perception of the thunder tribulation of ascension. Time passed quickly, and several months passed in the blink of an eye. Li Zhirui slowly opened his eyes, and his breath was slightly improved. In addition, he also had an understanding of the intensity of the thunder tribulation, which was convenient for him to prepare in advance when he crossed the tribulation in the future. I wonder what gift Dao Tong sent. Li Zhirui took out a jade slip with some anticipation, probed into it with his spiritual sense, and then became addicted to it. He didn't even notice that Asan walked in front of him. After a long time, Li Zhirui woke up from the jade slip and sighed, "What a precious thank you gift." In the jade slip, there are methods on how to easily cross the internal tribulation of wind and fire, the experience of practicing the spirit transformation, and the final perception of crossing the tribulation in ascension. If such a jade slip is placed in the outside world, I am afraid that all cultivators will go crazy. With this precious jade slip, Li Zhirui's confidence in ascending to heaven increased by at least 20%. Ninth brother. After so many years, why hasn't the killing egg hatched yet? Akin complained, "You'd better take it out of the space." No one knows what happened, but the killing egg has become very active recently, and it can even control the spiritual energy to carry it. The space was in turmoil, and the spiritual medicines that had just been planted were messed up by him. They had to be replanted later, which increased Akan's workload for nothing. He really couldn't stand it. After hearing Akan's long list of complaints, Li Zhirui's heart moved. Could it be that it is about to hatch? With this thought, he flew to the place where the killing egg was placed and asked, "Are you about to be born soon?" "It should be. I vaguely feel it." Li Zhirui was overjoyed when he heard this. After waiting for so many years, he finally waited. He thought it would take thousands of years to hatch. Although after hatching, it still needs to start from the first level, but with a killin's footing, the speed of cultivation is probably as fast as a rocket. Of course, Li Zhirui would not allow this to happen. He would suppress Killin and help him lay a good foundation. The foundation determines the upper level. If you don't pay attention to the foundation, it will be too late to regret it later. Don't cause trouble everywhere, otherwise you will anger Asan and lock you up. "I won't let you out," Li Zhirui reminded. After so many years of cultivation, Asan has already become a third-level demon spirit. Although the Killin bloodline is of extremely high grade, it is only an egg now. Even after hatching, it is only the first level. It is easy for Asan to deal with him. "Got it," the little Killin responded nonchalantly. Li Zhirui shook his head and didn't hear what he said. But he didn't want to say more. After all, no matter how much he said, it would be better to experience it personally and leave a deep impression. Chapter 891 Spirit Seed. As expected, Ashen Li Zhirui did not intervene in this matter. When the little Killin destroyed the spiritual seeds that had just been planted, he used magic to hang him up and hung him on the branches. He did not put the little Killin down for several days. At this time, Li Zhirui had already left the secret realm and embarked on the journey back to Banyan Island. Because he was not in a hurry to go back, Li Zhirui did not rush on the road, but walked between heaven and earth with the attitude of traveling and appreciating the scenery. Perhaps because of the different cultivation and the improvement of his vision, Li Zhirui had a deeper understanding of the central region. The reason why the central region is far superior to the other regions is not only because of the rich spiritual energy, but also because of a strange energy similar to merit, which permeates every corner of the central region. What is this? Li Zhirui was very curious, but he could not touch it, so he could only use his spiritual consciousness to see their existence. If he could analyze and copy this energy, Banyan Island might be able to match the central region, which would be of great benefit to Li Zhirui in the development of the Li family. After thinking hard, Li Zhirui still couldn't find any ideas. He had no choice but to suppress them in his heart. Maybe he could find out the truth when his cultivation level improved in the future. Along the way, Li Zhirui walked and stopped, as if he was really like a romantic talent in the world, admiring the beautiful scenery everywhere. In this process, he constantly comprehended the jade slips given by Dao Tuang and the cultivation experience exchanged for the Wanjian sect, absorbing the essence that was beneficial to himself. Although he was not in a spiritual realm with a strong purification law, and his cultivation speed was far less than before, Li Zhirui's realm was slowly and firmly improving. One day, Li Zhirui came to a huge fairy city. The city gate was tall and heavy, and the city was magnificent. The avenue outside the city was full of people, including mortals and cultivators. The two were mixed together, and it looked very lively, indicating that something big was about to happen here. Li Zhirui was curious, and he converged his own aura into a small key training cultivator and lined up at the end of the team. "Excuse me, old man, what's going on? There are so many mortals and cultivators gathered here," Li Zhirui asked the old man in front of him with a curious look. "The immortal is from another place, right?" The old man was not worried about Li Zhirui's identity. He was respectful but not humble. He said with full energy, "Tomorrow is the annual soul testing conference of Kyudao Immortal City. We mortals either bring our juniors to test the soul or come to watch the fun. It is worthy of being the central region." The mortals nearby actually came to participate in the soul testing. Who dares to do this in other places? Those mortals are probably eaten or abducted by monsters and demon cultivators halfway through. And those immortals took this opportunity to exchange what they have and what they don't have. I don't know exactly what happened, I see. Thank you for telling me, old man, Li Zhirui immediately understood. After thanking him, he quietly lined up at the end of the team and walked forward with the flow of people. Although the team was long, the speed of entering the city was very fast. In just a moment, Li Zhirui entered the city. When he was outside, he felt that the city was very large. After entering in person, Li Zhirui found that he might have underestimated the area of the city. After walking around the city casually, Li Zhirui found the gathering place of the monks, behind a huge square that could accommodate hundreds of thousands of people. When passing by the square, Li Zhirui saw several monks checking a formation, which should be used to test the spiritual roots of mortals. When you walk into it, you will find that the monks' territory is also very lively, with the sounds of hawking and bargaining everywhere. It's just that there is a formation blocking it, so that mortals can't see or hear what is happening here. My fellow Taoist, I have several second-level spiritual seeds in my hand, all of which are good things. After they mature, they can definitely be sold at a high price. There is a discount for large quantities. You can take away 100 spiritual seeds with only 10 spiritual stones. The nearest stall owner saw Li Zhirui's eyes looking around, and then saw that he was only in the middle stage of key training. He knew at a glance that this was a newcomer, and hurriedly spoke to attract his attention. After all, this kind of newcomer is the easiest to deceive. Li Zhirui naturally saw through the stall owner's trick. A smile flashed in his eyes, pretending to be innocent, and walked forward, asking, "Senior, are these really second-level spiritual seeds? Can I pick them up and have a look?" Of course, the stall owner was not worried about being exposed. These were spiritual seeds that he had carefully faked. With him, a young cultivator, it was impossible to see through them. He immediately handed over a small bag of spiritual seeds. But who would have thought that this was an old monster who had transformed into a god? And he was also a 5th-level alchemy master. Without even picking them up, Li Zhirui easily identified that these were all the most common alfalfa seeds. These were not even first-level spiritual objects, but contained a little spiritual energy, and were eaten as snacks by first-level carnivorous spiritual beasts such as yellow spirit cattle. This small bag, at most, is only 1 spiritual stone. Huh? Li Zhirui subconsciously used his spiritual sense to explore it. As a cultivator, using spiritual sense has long been embedded in his blood and has become an instinct, and found a somewhat strange seed. It looked like it had little vitality and would soon become a dead seed, but Li Zhirui was keenly aware that it was because the surrounding spiritual energy could not meet the needs of the spiritual seed, so that the vitality kept fading and eventually became like this. Even the spiritual energy so rich in the central region cannot satisfy a spiritual seed? You know, the spiritual energy in the ordinary land of the central region is comparable to the second or third level spiritual veins. Even fourth level spiritual objects can barely survive, let alone a low level grass seed. With a thought, he put the seed into the space, then picked up 10 grass seeds at random, put down a spiritual stone, and turned around and left decisively. Hey, fellow Taoist. Why don't you take another look? The stall owner showed a hint of surprise in his eyes, and quickly put away the spiritual stone. When he looked up and called for people, Li Zhirui had already merged into the crowd and disappeared. The reason why Li Zhirui was so anxious to leave was because he found that the moment the spiritual seed was put into the space, a spiritual storm was set off. The rich spiritual energy in the space, which had become substantial, surged from all directions and was constantly absorbed by this seemingly inconspicuous spiritual seed that was no bigger than a grain of rice. When Li Zhirui rented the inn and entered the space in person, he keenly noticed that the spiritual energy in the space had become 10% thinner. You know, since Li Zhirui broke through the transformation of the spirit, the spiritual energy in the space has been comparable to the 5th level top-grade spiritual veins. But in front of this spiritual seed, it took less than a quarter of an hour to absorb a full 10% of the spiritual energy. Fortunately, the spiritual seed seemed to be satisfied and stopped swallowing spiritual energy, falling from the sky. Before falling into the spiritual soil, Li Zhirui moved the spiritual seed to a mountain. The plants planted in the mountain were all common low-level spiritual objects, so he didn't feel bad if they were destroyed. Chapter 892 Shock. After the space returned to calm, Akin approached cautiously. A trace of fear appeared on his face, and he asked in a low voice, "Brother Jiu, what is this? How can it be so terrifying?" Li Zhirui looked at Akin thoughtfully. You know, in front of the 8th grade Killin, Akin did not feel the slightest feeling of blood suppression, but he was afraid of this dying spirit seed. After thinking for a while, he said, "It should be a spirit seed of extremely high grade. As for what kind of spirit object it is, I am not sure, but if nothing unexpected happens, its origin should be the same as that of the little Killin Amu, coming from outside the realm, not a spirit seed bred in the Zuinitan realm." Since the spirit seeds have not fully recovered their vitality, Li Zhirui has no way to accurately judge their grade, but they are at least 7th grade. "Akin, please help me take good care of this spirit seed." Seeing that Akin was still shrinking, Li Zhirui said with a smile, "Don't worry, there won't be such a big movement again. By the way, where's Amu? Amu, who has always been lively and active, has not been seen until now. Obviously, there's a problem. I tied him up. I'll teach him a lesson so he won't destroy the spirit seed," Akin said with a hint of resentment. "Well, I should teach him a lesson," Li Zhirui warned. "You must keep an eye on this spirit seed and don't let Amu destroy it." "Don't worry," Akin patted his chest and promised. Li Zhirui laughed in his heart. "You are bullying Amu now. When he is born, his cultivation will surpass yours. It will be exciting. This is not impossible." Although Akin is now a 3rd level spirit beast and Amu has not yet been born, he is an 8th level Killin. It is true that cultivation will improve by leaps and bounds. However, Li Zhirui did not remind Akin that having a competitor and confronting each other can better improve their cultivation. Li Zhirui practiced in the space for one night. The next morning, he went to the spirit testing square with everyone. He wanted to see how big the gap was in qualifications between the mortals in the central region and the secular clansmen of the Li family. Maybe it was not the time yet, and the square was noisy. The monks discussed how many monks would appear in this spiritual test and what their qualifications were. The mortals prayed to the gods, hoping that their children would have spiritual roots and become monks seeking immortality. But on both sides of the road leading to the main road, there were countless corpses. Perhaps they would die in an unknown corner at any time. If this was the outcome, would these mortals still be so eager to hope that their children would become monks? Li Zhirui, standing in the crowd, seemed to be in 2 different worlds from them, watching everything happening in front of him indifferently. At some point, a bell sounded over the square, and the scene suddenly became quiet. Hundreds of monks came here on the spirit ship. They were generally giant and cultivators, and only the dozen or so leading people were Yuanying. It can be seen from the clothes they wore that they belonged to different sects. Generally speaking, the Immortal Cultivation family would not absorb children who had just been tested for spiritual power, but would recruit grown-up guests and retainers. Then the monks separated and set up the signs of their own sects around the square. Li Zhirui took a glance and found that these were all sects within a radius of 100,000 miles of the Immortal City. There were powerful sects like the Huashan sect of Xianhu Mountain, and weak sects like the Jiandan sect of Sangsing sect in the central region. There were no sects or families that only built foundations and practiced Qi, so they were not qualified to participate in the spirit testing conference that publicly recruited disciples. As for how they could increase their disciples, either they picked up children who were not wanted by other sects and had very poor qualifications, or they went to the mortal villages to test their spirits in advance and brought the children back to the sect. However, the latter had certain risks, and once they were discovered, they would be punished. Speaking of which, 5 people from more than a dozen sects came out and activated the spirit testing array. In the 13,852nd year of the Immortal Dao calendar, the spirit testing conference of Kiudao Immortal City has officially begun. With a loud shout, tens of thousands of children of the right age walked into the formation. A trace of surprise flashed in Li Zhirui's eyes. It was actually possible to test whether more than 10,000 children had spiritual roots at one time? He thought to himself, after we go back, I can ask Feng Wu to think about it and reduce the time for the family to test the spirit. Buzz! The formation began to rotate, and the streams of light transformed by various spiritual energies wandered in the internal space, like a world of colors, extremely gorgeous. Almost at the moment when the streams appeared, a spiritual light lit up on the head of a child. Li Zhirui's pupils shrank suddenly, and he couldn't help but exclaimed, "Heavenly spiritual roots." The cultivators on the side looked over one after another, and their eyes seemed to be asking where this pumpkin came from. From their reactions, it is not difficult to see that although heavenly spiritual roots are rare, they are definitely not very rare. Maybe several of them can appear at each spirit test conference. Li Zhirui immediately thought of the Li family. Over the years, the family has produced tens of thousands of cultivators, but so far, there is only one heavenly spiritual root, Li Mingai Ao. Soon, the spiritual root test was completed. Li Zhirui used his powerful spiritual sense to scan it and came up with a number that shocked him. 1,037 people. In other words, in the central region, the proportion of mortals with spiritual roots is as high as 1 in 10. And how many are there in the Li family? Even if both parents are cultivators, the ratio of their children with spiritual roots is not as high as this. This is just the mortals in the central region. If it is the children of those cultivators, how exaggerated will the ratio of their spiritual roots be? Thinking of this, Li Zhirui sighed in his heart. No wonder the central region can prosper forever. With such an exaggerated ratio of spiritual roots, hundreds of thousands of cultivators can be born every year. In the next few rounds of spiritual testing, the ratio of spiritual roots was about 10%, and there were several natural spiritual roots. Li Zhirui has calmed down for such a result, but he keeps deducing in his mind what is the reason for the mortals in the central region to have such an amazing ratio of spiritual roots. Unfortunately, this aspect of knowledge is too profound, and Li Zhirui has never thought about it before. How can he have a clue now in a hurry? The preliminary test of spiritual roots is completed, and then the children are free to choose the sect to join according to their own qualifications. Of course, the sect is also conditional. For example, Xianhu Mountain requires at least 3 spiritual roots, and even if the qualifications meet the requirements, there are still several rounds of tests in the future. Only by passing all the tests can you join. However, for those children with natural spiritual roots, the various sects would certainly relax the conditions for them. If they chose a nascent soul or golden core sect, they might directly accept them as their disciples after checking that they were not undercover agents sent by other sects. As for whether there would be a sect willing to use children with natural spiritual roots as undercover agents, that was another matter. Chapter 893 Understanding. A spiritual test conference opened Li Zhirui's eyes, especially the fact that Xianhu Mountain rejected a child with a natural spiritual root, which shocked him. Li Zhirui had no idea about the specific reason. He only knew that the child failed one of the tests, and then Xianhu Mountain rejected this person without hesitation. In the end, He was accepted by a newly promoted Huishan sect. According to Li Zhirui's understanding of the central region, Shanhu Mountain is actually not ranked in the entire central region. But it was such a force that rejected a child with a natural spiritual root, a child who was destined to achieve the nascent soul. Li Zhirui couldn't help but think of the Wanjian sect. Although they have many disciples, the threshold for admission is definitely higher than that of Shanhu Mountain. From this point, we can also see how many excellent immortal cultivation seeds there are in the central region. As for Li Zhirui, who joined the Wanjian sect halfway, it was because the killing sword vein was special. There were very few cultivators who practiced the killing sword way and whose Dao heart was not affected at all. Even so, Li Zhirui officially joined the Wanjian sect after a lot of assessment and testing. Originally, Li Zhirui thought that the Li family could still develop well in the East region and Wangxin Island, but now it seems that he thought too simply. In the East region, no matter how the Li family develops, they can't surpass those big forces in the Central region. Just look at this spiritual testing conference. In all these years, the Li family has only produced one person with a natural spiritual root, but in the Central region, there are several people with natural spiritual roots in any spiritual testing conference. And how many spiritual testing conferences are there in the Central region every year? At least 50. This does not include the children of the immortal cultivation families in the Central region. The starting points are different, and there is a big gap. How can they compete? Therefore, Li Zhirui had an idea. Can the Li family be moved to the Central region? As the saying goes, if you can't beat them, join them. If the Li family can gain a foothold in the Central region and gain a firm foothold, will the clan members born in the future have such excellent qualifications? But the problem is that the Central region has no land for other forces to develop. As powerful as the Sword sect, this sect that can compete with the Wanjian sect in swordsmanship is still in the East region. Didn't they notice this? How is it possible? Why didn't the Sword sect come? Didn't they want to? If we only talk about strength, the Sword sect can sweep away 70% to 80% of the forces in the Central region and easily snatch a large piece of territory from them. But why not do this? Because if you beat the small ones, the old ones will come. Behind those small forces in the Central region are forces that are no weaker than the Sword sect. Layer by layer, they are connected to each other, forming a big net. Even a strong Sword sect cannot break free from this big net. Alice, thinking of this, Li Zhirui sighed heavily. Shaking his head, putting aside these unrealistic fantasies, Li Zhirui felt that it would be more reliable to increase the concentration of spiritual energy on Wangxin Island. Wangxin Island, in the cave on the left side of the top of Wangxin Mountain. How can I unite the heaven and earth and see the sea of laws? Li Shengsheng said to himself, his eyes full of thoughts. My father took the great dream fruit and reincarnated countless times in the dream, and finally broke through to the god transformation in one fell swoop. My mother wandered in the mortal world, entered the Tao with the way of mortals, and moved towards the god transformation step by step. Li Chengsheng didn't have the conditions for the former. The great dream fruit was hard to come by, and he might not have the chance to get one again in his life. The latter. Li Chengsheng frowned. Logically speaking, this was the most suitable for him. After all, the years of war allowed him to move forward in his realm, but if he wanted to break through, he still needed a lot of time to settle. But Li Chengsheng was a little greedy. He wanted to break through as soon as possible and didn't want to spend dozens or hundreds of years traveling in the mortal world to comprehend the Tao. Why did I forget this? Li Chengsheng's eyes suddenly lit up, and he took out the sun gem. There is a trace of real sun fire in it. Is there any lack of sun law in the sun fire? Li Chengsheng didn't need to follow the path his parents took, he could just comprehend the sun gem directly. He really didn't know he had a treasure mountain in his hands. With a sigh in his heart, he put away all his thoughts, calmed his mind, and began to seriously comprehend the laws in the gems. The law of the sun has the scorching heat of the most rigid and yang, as well as the warmth of the wind and the sun. There is a raging fire that burns everything, and there is also sunlight that brings vitality to all things. This is an all-encompassing law, vast and vast. Li Chengsheng knew that with his current cultivation, he could not comprehend the complete law of the sun, because he might not be able to comprehend anything in his entire life. He could only selectively comprehend a part of it, master it first, and then improve his mastery of the law of the sun little by little as his cultivation grew. After careful consideration by Li Zhirui, he chose the part of the law that represents the most rigid and yang. The reason for making such a choice is that it has a good lethality, Especially it has a strong restraining effect on evil things. After determining the direction, Li Chengsheng began to devote himself to it and comprehend the law. Li Chengsheng was working hard to find a shortcut to break through the incarnation, but Li Chengshuo on the other side was worried about how to touch the threshold of incarnation. How can I find a way to break through the shackles? That's right. Li Chengshuo encountered a bottleneck in cultivation. Li Chengsheng was lucky enough to break through the bottleneck directly because of the war, but Li Chengshuo didn't have such good luck, and now that the war is over, she can only rely on herself. I can't be one step slower than my brother again, right? Li Chengshuo has always wanted to surpass Li Chengsheng, but unfortunately, up to now, she has never defeated Li Chengsheng. Retreat? It may be useful, but I don't know how long it will take. Then the only way left is to travel outside. Li Chengshuo's hesitant expression gradually became firm. When Li Chengsheng obviously had the advantage, she still didn't think of giving up the idea of surpassing him. And this is also the reason why Li Chengshuo gave up retreating in the family and chose to go out for training directly. After all, the former may take a long time, and in most cases, it is impossible to catch up with Li Chengsheng, who is one step ahead. So Li Chengshuo can only find another way. Maybe he can overtake on the curve. After making up her mind, she never wavered again. She spent some time in the family preparing the spiritual objects needed for the trip, and then went to visit Zhang Fengwu and report. As a mother, Zhang Fengwu obviously understood Li Chengshuo's thoughts very well. She looked at her for a moment, sighed slightly, and said, "Since you want to do it, then do it. This is a 5th level attack and defense formation. You accept it?" Li Chengshuo is also a formation master. Although his talent is not as good as Zhang Fengwu, he is at least a 4th level formation master. He can easily arrange the 5th level formation engraved on the formation plate and formation flag. With this formation, Zhang Fengwu can also feel more at ease. Unless the god of transformation takes action personally, or dozens of nascent souls besiege, it is difficult to break this formation. Chapter 894. Li Chengshuo left Wangxin Island the next day, taking a spirit beast with him, and he didn't know where he was going. I hope this won't become Shuer's obsession, Zhang Fengwu murmured with a worried look on his face. It's a good thing to have a target to chase, but if you care too much about it, it may lead to disaster for the cultivator. Zhang Fengwu didn't want Li Chengshuo to go that far. "Chengshuo, where are we going?" Yu Jiao asked curiously. Li Chengshuo may not be very lucky. She has never met a suitable spirit beast. Of course, it is mainly because she has too high standards and doesn't look down on Taiyan spirit beasts below the 4th rank. So far, Li Chengshuo has only contracted 2 spirit beasts, Yu Jiao and Xianwei, who accompanied her at the beginning. Let's go to the central region, the center of this Zuinitun realm. Li Chengshuo had already thought of the destination for training. But she did not meet Li Zhirui, who was rushing back, on the way. Not long after, Li Zhirui returned to Wangxin Island. The first thing he did was to summon Zhang Fengwu, Daking and others, and distribute 1 copy of the 2 cultivation insights he copied on the road to each person. As for Dao Tong's comprehension of the tribulation, the internal tribulation of wind and fire, etc., Li Zhirui did not put them in. It's not that there are any restrictions, but these things are still a little far away for them, and it's not a good thing to let them know too early. Moreover, Li Zhirui plans to put the complete original jade slips into the Sutra library, and when they need it in the future, they can look through it themselves. "Brother Jiu, you have gained so much on this trip," Zhao King said with a gleam in her eyes, with a look of emotion. "That senior is of noble status, and he has successfully ascended to heaven." As he said, Li Zhirui took out a photo stone from the storage ring, and a little spiritual energy was immersed in it to activate it. "This is the video of Senior Dao Tong's tribulation and ascension. You should watch it carefully and attentively," Li Zhirui interrupted them and reminded them. Although the photo stone can only record the picture, and cannot record the breath of the thunder tribulation, etc., it is not useless for Zhang Fengwu and others. At least it can let them know how terrifying the thunder tribulation is. But unfortunately, Li Zhirui's idea failed. Because in the picture, Dao Tong's process of transcending the tribulation was extremely easy, and he succeeded simply, without any challenge at all. Instead, it gave Zhang Fengwu and the others a feeling that it was nothing special. "Brother Jiu, how can the ascending thunder tribulation be so easy?" Xiao Qing asked in disbelief. Li Zhirui rubbed his eyebrows in distress and said with a wry smile, "I made a mistake." Then his expression became solemn, and he said in a very serious manner, "The reason why you think it is easy is that this senior is too powerful. His sword realm can really be called the world's #1 sword cultivator. After hundreds of years of suffering from the torture of demonic energy day and night, he can still comprehend the sword and improve the sword. What an amazing will!" Unfortunately, they could not see it with their own eyes, and it was impossible for them to experience Li Zhirui's initial shock. "Forget it, you should forget those pictures just now." After that, he put away the photo stone and did not plan to take it out again in the future. Zhang Fengwu and the others looked at each other, and talked about Li Chengshua's experience outside during the chat. "What do you think we should do if Shu'er becomes obsessed?" Zhang Fengwu was still worried about this situation. "Don't worry, Shu'er won't." Li Zhirui was still very confident in Li Chengshua, and then asked about Li Chengsheng's situation. "I don't know, he has been in seclusion in the cave and has never come out." Li Zhirui smiled thoughtfully. "Maybe Shenzhe has found a way to break through the gate of the god transformation," but Zhang Fengwu and others didn't believe it very much, because they had all come here personally and knew how difficult it was to break through the god transformation. How could Li Chengsheng take this step so quickly? Several people were busy practicing, especially after getting 2 cultivation insights, so they didn't chat for too long and went their separate ways. There is no calendar in the mountains, and the year is unknown when the cold ends. Time passed in a flash, and it was 10 years later. One day, the unicorn egg, which had been very active for more than 10 years, suddenly became quiet, scaring Asan, who was used to Amu's noise, into panic, thinking that Amu had a problem. When they got closer, they found that it was about to be born. Akan hurriedly used his secret method to tell Li Zhirui about this through his soul. Li Zhirui, who was refining the purification Yuandan, gave up the precious 5th-level treasure pill after knowing it, flashed into the space, and personally stood by, fearing that there would be any problems when Amu was born. Although it stands to reason that Amu had been incubated in the kiln egg for such a long time and had been very active for a long time, there should be no problem. But it is better to be safe than sorry. If there is any accident, Li Zhirui can deal with it as soon as possible. Catcha, I don't know how long it took, but with a first cracking sound, Amu broke the thick eggshell with some difficulty. Then, as if it was accelerated, Amu's whole body soon appeared in front of Li Zhirui and Akan. Deer antlers, lion head, tiger eyes, wolf hooves, ox tail, covered with scales, as if there was a green light flowing, almost no different from the legendary Kilin. It's just that the body is a little smaller, only 2 feet in size. Li Zhirui didn't sigh for too long. He strode forward and cast a spell without hesitation to sign a contract with Amu. After a moment, the contract was established. From then on, Li Zhirui and Amu were closely bound together. Daking and others in the outside world had a sense of it, and then they remembered the 8th-grade kiln egg in the space. A few years later, Li Mingzi, the outstanding female patriarch, is handing over the power in her hands to the next patriarch selected by the clan members Li Zhiansong. He is also from the secular clan, not from a faction. It seems that starting from the previous patriarch Li Daran, this has become a tacit condition for serving as the patriarch. However, after Li Zhirui's suppression and Li Mingzi's decades of division and weakening, the strength of the factions within the Li family is much weaker than before. And Li Zhiansong has another biggest feature, or advantage, that is, he is a Yuanying cultivator. The first Yuanying patriarch of the Li family. In fact, the Li family has developed to this extent, and it is no longer possible to use a giant cultivator to represent the family image outside. Li Zhiansong had just broken through to the nascent soul stage a few years ago, and had been studying with Li Mingzi, so he was the so-called candidate for the clan leader. With all the other competitors still at the golden core stage, it was almost a foregone conclusion that Li Zhiansong would become the clan leader. Of course, Li Zhiansong still had some ability, otherwise, the clan members would not have pushed him to the position of clan leader. Chapter 895 Excitement. Over the past 20 years, the Li family has greatly increased its strength, with 11 more nascent soul cultivators, more than 50 golden core cultivators, not to mention the foundation building and key training clansmen. Thanks to this, the Li family has been able to comprehensively and deeply rule Wangxian's Hao and fully develop the spiritual veins in all parts of Wangxian's Hao. You know, before this, The Li family did not have enough golden core cultivators, so some third-level spiritual veins in remote areas could only be sealed with formations, and a few clansmen were sent every year to take care of them for a few days. But now it is different. The Li family has sent out a large number of clansmen, led by the golden core clansmen, with many foundation building and key training clansmen, to develop these spiritual veins and gain greater benefits for the family. Moreover, every 1,000 miles, the Li family will send a nascent soul cultivator to the place with the most concentrated spiritual energy to protect the family residents within 1,000 miles. At the same time, the Li family began a new round of expansion of Wangsan Island. In order to defend against the war between the sea clans and prevent the war from spreading to Wangsan Island, a long chain of islands was built 2,000 miles away. But now that the war is over, these island chains have no meaning to exist. Instead of wandering outside, it is better to integrate into Wangsan Island and expand the family's territory, which also gives the secular people more living space. After so many years of living in peace and contentment, the number of secular people has reached a very terrifying level. After all, the Li family has always encouraged them to have children, and the relevant benefits have not only not weakened over time, but have increased. In addition, the damage caused by natural disasters and man-made disasters is not great. Sometimes, as soon as natural disasters occur, the Li family has already sent monks to help. As for man-made disasters, there is no so-called man-made disaster on Wangsan Island. This has led to the originally empty Wangsan Island becoming overcrowded, and some mortals have even reclaimed land in the mountainous areas on the edge of the island and established small villages. The Li family did not choose to let the secular people go to the land to spread out, but multiplied on Wangsan Island. First, it is convenient to manage, and second, the island is rich in spiritual energy. Although mortals cannot actively absorb spiritual energy, living in such a place all the time is still very beneficial to them. For example, they are strong and healthy and live longer. Moreover, they never lacked food, which was also due to the rich spiritual energy. There was no need to worry about inbreeding, because whether the Li family was marrying a wife or a concubine, or recruiting a son-in-law, they would go to the mainland to find someone, and every time there were a large number of mortals who actively signed up. Therefore, the first thing the new patriarch Li Zhirui did after taking office was to organize the family's incarnation and uniting to move the island chain thousands of miles away and merge it with Wangsan Island. Even with the help of Li Zhirui and others, this was still an extremely huge project that would take a long time to complete. It was not until 5 years later that the expansion of Wangsan Island was completed. Now Wangsan Island is 1,800 miles long from north to south, 1,300 miles wide from east to west, and only a few dozen miles wide at the narrowest ends. Except for the 300-mile radius in the center and the spiritual veins scattered on Wangsan Island, other places are for the secular clansmen to reproduce. On this day, the sky over Wangsan Island suddenly changed, and dark clouds rolled in, covering the top of Wangsan Mountain. The sudden change attracted the attention of many clan members, who gathered around. This situation was not uncommon in the Li family. Everyone knew that someone in the clan was undergoing a tribulation, but it was even more powerful. Only those Yuanying elders can open caves on the top of the mountain. There is a thunder tribulation here. Could it be that an elder has broken through to the god of transformation? After so many years, is the family going to give birth to another god of transformation ancestor? In fact, in the past 20 years, Feng Peng, one of Zhang Fengwu's 3 contracted spirit beasts, successfully broke through to the 5th level, and the other 2 spirit beasts were still in seclusion. The most likely one should be ancestor Cheng Sheng. His cultivation is the most powerful among the Yuanying elders. It must be him, because the top of the mountain was too high, surrounded by clouds and mist, the view was blocked. In addition, the appearance of the thunder tribulation made it impossible for them to get close, so they were not sure which Yuanying it was. But the clan members who knew a little about the family had the answer in their hearts. Not long after, Li Chengsheng flew out of the cave and began to face the thunder tribulation, confirming everyone's speculation. The process of overcoming the tribulation was very dull. Li Chengsheng successfully overcame the thunder tribulation without much difficulty. As for the inner demon, in front of Li Chengsheng, who was like a bright sun and extremely strong and masculine, it could not get any good at all. When Li Zhirui finished his practice, he found 2 communication talismans sent one after another, which were about Li Chengsheng's tribulation. It only took 20 to 30 years to successfully take this step and become a god. It is more powerful than my parents Fengwu and me, Li Zhirui said with a smile. Just when the practice was over, he flew to the cave on the top of the mountain. Li Chengsheng was naturally in seclusion to consolidate his realm. Li Zhirui just wanted to take a look and happened to meet Zhang Fengwu. I didn't expect Shenzhe to succeed in breaking through so quickly, Zhang Fengwu sighed. Of course, she believed that Li Chengsheng could break through to the god, but it was unexpected that he succeeded in just 30 years. Shenzhe has a sun gem in his hand, which contains a trace of real sun fire. He must have relied on comprehending this thing to break through so quickly. Although it was just Li Zhirui's guess, it was exactly the same as the actual situation. My children are so hardworking, maybe it won't take many years for them to surpass me, Zhang Fengwu said with a smile. Li Zhirui didn't have to worry about this problem. His cultivation level was steadily improving, and he had already reached the middle stage of the transformation of the spirit. However, Zhang Fengwu, who had not broken through for too long, was not without a chance to catch up. How could it be so easy? Your cultivation level is improving very fast. And Shenzhe hasn't even reached the spiritual realm yet. Work hard to practice and leave them far behind, Li Zhirui comforted. Zhang Fengwu is not a person who complained about the world. After all, it would be better to calm down and practice instead of complaining. But she thought of Li Chengshue who was traveling outside. I don't know how Shuer is doing now. At the moment when Li Chengsheng successfully broke through the transformation of the spirit, Li Chengshue, who was thousands of miles away, actually had a sense of it in his heart. Brother, have you made a breakthrough to the god transformation? Li Chengshuo's whole spirit fell. A few years ago, she saw an opportunity to make a breakthrough to the god transformation by chance and has been working hard for it. And during this period of time, Li Chengshuo's realm has improved a lot, getting closer and closer to the god transformation. She saw that she had a chance to surpass Li Chengshen, who had always been above her, but he had already made a breakthrough. Li Chengshuo felt that her efforts over the years were in vain. No. It's not in vain. Otherwise, how could I have reached this point in 30 years? Chapter 896 For People. At that moment, Li Chengshuo's thoughts came to her mind, and the last obstacle in front of her collapsed. Ha. After a moment of hesitation, Li Chengshuo did not expect that the threshold that had trapped her for decades would be crossed just like that. She could not help but laugh out loud, and immediately turned east, rushing all the way to Banyan Island. She did not stay in the central region to break through, mainly because she did not know how long she would need to retreat, and the price of the retreat cave rented in the central region was extremely high, especially since Li Chengshuo was still breaking through the spirit transformation, and the high price was not something she could afford. 2 years later, Li Chengshuo returned to Banyan Island in a dusty state, and then went straight back to the cave, retreating without coming out. Shuer is back in a hurry. One day during his free time, Zhang Fengwu told Li Zhirui the news. The 5th-level island protection formation that protects the Li family is naturally a means of recording the entry and exit of personnel. Zhang Fengwu handed over the formation plate that records all the formations to the family, but she is the one who sets up the formation after all, and can control the formation without the formation plate. Of course, Zhang Fengwu would not do such a thing, but she specially marked the identity jade cards of Li Zhirui, Li Chengsheng and Li Chengshue, who she was concerned about. In simple terms, as long as the 3 of them entered and exited Banyan Island through the formation, they could not hide it from Zhang Fengwu. Previously, Zhang Fengwu found that Li Chengshue had returned, so he planned to visit her to see if she had encountered any problems. As a result, he found that Li Chengshue was in seclusion and did not come out. It was unknown whether she was healing or doing other things, which made Zhang Fengwu very worried. But he did not dare to forcefully explore the cave, in case Li Chengshue was in a critical period and disturbed her, causing mistakes in the practice and causing greater problems. Could it be that she was seriously injured? Li Zhirui frowned. Li Chengshuo's 2 spirit beasts were also taken in, and there was no one to answer his questions. Yes, this stinky girl didn't even know to leave a letter. As a result, we don't know anything about the situation. When we come out, we must teach her a lesson. Zhang Fengwu said so, but his face was full of worry. Maybe it's not a bad thing, just relax and wait. Li Zhirui had no other choice but to comfort him. The two were worried about Li Chengshuo's situation, but it was impossible for them to stop practicing because of this. One wave has not settled, Another wave rises. After Li Chengsheng broke through the spirit transformation, he stayed in Banyan Island for a few years. Because he could not collect suitable 5th-level solar spiritual objects, he could not open up his own solar spiritual realm. After a few years, he could not stand such a slow speed of practice, so he planned to go to the void to search for treasure. As for the solar gem in his hand, it was too precious, and Li Chengsheng was reluctant to merge it with his spiritual realm. After all, it contains a trace of the sun's true fire. Not to mention that he is only a spirit transformation now. Even if he is a Mahayana cultivator, it will have a lot of benefits for his own cultivation. In fact, if it weren't for the solar gem in his hand, Li Chengsheng's practice speed in the past few years would be even slower. Li Zhirui frowned and looked at Li Chengsheng, who was standing in front of him, and asked, "Do you have to go to the void? Can't you look for the solar spirit in Zuinitan realm? Father, you also know that Zuinitan realm is just a small world, and 5th-level spirits are very rare. Not to mention that I want a solar spirit," Li Chengsheng replied respectfully. Li Zhirui's expression froze when he heard this, and then said, "You also know that solar spirits are hard to find. Even if you go to the void, it may be a waste of time, but hope is greater than in Zuinitan realm after all, and even if you get other 5th-level spirits, you can try to exchange with others." Hearing Li Chengsheng say this, Li Zhirui knew that he had made up his mind. Li Chengsheng, who has always been stubborn, can no longer listen to any persuasion. But Li Zhirui doesn't want him to explore the void now, because it is too dangerous. A chaos storm can kill Li Chengsheng. "Does your mother know?" Li Zhirui asked after a long silence. "I don't know, obviously." Li Chengsheng knew that if Zhang Fengwu knew, he might not be able to leave, because Zhang Fengwu would strongly oppose it. But such a big thing, you can't hide it from her. Li Zhirui hoped that Zhang Fengwu could stop him. But who would have thought that after Zhang Fengwu knew about this, he not only did not object, but unexpectedly agreed. "I was originally planning to go to the void in the near future. Now it happens that I am with Shenzhe, and we can take care of each other," Zhang Fengwu explained. Seeing this situation, Li Zhirui knew that there was no way to stop Li Chengsheng, and he had to take Zhang Fengwu with him. "Forget it, I will refine some precious pills for you in the next few days. Life-saving spiritual objects like the earth-escaping talisman have no effect in the void, so we can only prepare more precious pills and magic tools." Somehow, the news that Zhang Fengwu and Li Chengsheng were about to go to the void leaked out. Then Zhao Qing and Xiaocan came hand in hand and came to Li Zhirui. "You guys also want to go to the void for training?" Zhao Qing and Xiaocan have never been people who keep to themselves, and Li Zhirui knows that they have always wanted to go to the void for training, but they didn't bring it up because he didn't take action. But now Zhang Fengwu and Li Chengsheng are about to go to the void. It's okay if they don't know about such a great opportunity, but how could they let it go if they knew? "Ninth brother has a keen eye," Zhao Qing laughed. "Forget it, if you want to go, go." Li Zhirui waved his hand helplessly and said, "I have realized something in my heart, and my cultivation is expected to improve greatly. I can't act with you, and there will be no space for you to hide. Everything depends on your own strength." The war between the sea tribes at that time also brought benefits to Li Zhirui, but it was not very obvious because he had just broken through the middle stage of the transformation of the spirit. After that, he observed Dao Tong's tribulation and gained some insights. In addition to the hard work of practicing for decades and the gains from several cultivation experiences, he could at least make a big step forward in his cultivation, not to mention breaking through the late stage of the transformation of the spirit. "Brother Jiu, don't worry. The other divine transformation cultivators can come back safely. The four of us will join forces, so naturally there won't be any problem," Xiao Kang said confidently. Xiao Qing has always been confident, and Xiao Kang, as a member of the Dragon Clan, is even more so, but he is more introverted and not as outspoken as Xiao Qing. "Go back and prepare," Li Zhirui sighed helplessly, worried that they would encounter danger in the void, but he also understood that it was impossible to stop them all the time. Just as Li Chengsheng said, Zuinitan realm is just a small world with limited 5th-level resources. As a newly promoted divine transformation force, they have no other channels to obtain cultivation resources except the Yuanqi treasure pill refined by Li Zhirui. Yuanqi treasure pill is of course very good, and it has a great accelerating effect on the cultivation of divine transformation cultivators. But treasure pills are difficult to refine. Even if Li Zhirui created the pill formula and refined it for hundreds of years, It only increased the success rate of alchemy. The time and energy consumed did not improve at all. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 897 Void. This also made it difficult for Jiang Fengwu and others to learn how to refine the Yuanqi treasure pill. They could only rely on Li Zhirui for the treasure pills they needed for cultivation. But Li Zhirui also needed to cultivate, so how could he spend a lot of time refining Yuandan for everyone? They couldn't shamelessly ask Li Zhirui to refine more Yuandan, right? So although Jiang Fengwu and others had Yuandan to take, that amount could not fully meet their needs. Even because too many Yuandan were refined for them, the purification Yuandan that Li Zhirui took was not as abundant as before. As the saying goes, when you are poor, you must change. Jiang Fengwu and others knew in their hearts that before the second and third fifth level alchemy masters appeared in the Li family, the insufficient number of Yuandan would always bother them. And to break this deadlock, the chance of finding treasures in the Zuinitan realm was slim and hopeless, so they could only seek outside and look for spiritual objects in the vast void. Li Zhirui naturally understood these principles, so he did not forcibly suppress everyone's actions. Time passed quickly, and in a blink of an eye it was 2 months later. At the top of Wangsan Mountain, all the gods of the Li family gathered here. Li Zhirui, Daking, Zhaoqing, Xiaokeng, Jiang Fengwu, Feng Peng and Li Chengxian, a total of 7 gods. Perhaps not as powerful as those who have been passed down for thousands of years, but they are proud enough, especially in the remote area of the far east corner. The Li family is a well-deserved overlord. Moreover, the Li family has only been passed down for 1,000 years, even if the period of Bailang County is counted. I don't know how many cultivators are shocked by the speed of development and growth. In addition to Li Zhirui, the other 6 gods will go to the void today. Feng Peng, who had just broken through, did not intend to go to the void, but when she saw Jiang Fengwu and the other 4 people join forces to go to the void to train and search for treasures, she was finally moved and took action. As for Daking, Li Zhirui once asked him why he didn't follow everyone. After all, in many cases, the more people there are, the stronger the strength is, and Li Zhirui knew that Daking did not have the idea of going to the void to train. Brother Jiu is in seclusion for training and will not show up in a short time, but Wangsan Island needs a god to sit in. This is Daking's answer. Li Zhirui shook his head and said, no need to do that. The reputation of the Li family has long been spread, and there is no force nearby that can threaten the Li family. You don't need to sacrifice yourself like this, but, no buts, you should go to the void with them. Li Zhirui directly finalized the matter. Daking's calmness is indeed a good thing, but it is too calm, so it seems a little hesitant and indecisive, which is not good. So except Li Zhirui, who will stay in Wangsan Island, the other 6 gods will go to the void. Speaking of which, I don't know when I will return. Longli and King Neo are in seclusion to impact the 5th level. I trouble Zhirui to protect them, Jiang Fengwu said softly. Don't worry, I will tell the family to protect them. Li Zhirui turned and said, chaos storms frequently occur in the void. You must pay more attention. If you notice a battle breaking out, you can't think of sitting back and reaping the benefits. But you should get away as soon as possible. After repeated instructions, Li Zhirui watched the Shangsu formation start and sent them all into the void. You must come back safely. Among the 6 people, 3 were Li Zhirui's contracted spirit beasts, and they were closely related to him. If they met with an accident, their own path would be cut off. One was his Taoist partner, and one was his son, both of whom were the closest people. Even Feng Peng, who was more distant, was related to Jiang Fengwu's path, and was Zhao Qing's Taoist partner. But at this time, only Li Zhirui was left, and the formation with a gradually dimming spiritual light. After saying that, he turned around and left, returning to the spiritual realm. Is this the void? Although they all knew what the void looked like from Li Zhirui, when they saw it with their own eyes, they were still shocked by the vast and boundless void. Not far away, the chaotic spiritual energy rolled, and in the blink of an eye, a small storm formed, raging around. Jiang Fengwu and others' faces changed slightly. With their cultivation, they could naturally sense how terrifying the energy contained in the storm was. If they were caught in it, even if they didn't die, they would be seriously injured. And this is just a small chaos storm. What if it is expanded several times, or even dozens or hundreds of times? Then they may not even have the ability to resist. Before, everyone thought that Li Zhirui was exaggerating, but after seeing it with their own eyes, they instantly dispersed the impetuousness and disdain in their hearts, and had a little awe of the void. Which direction should we go? Xiaoqing broke the silence. Why not go straight ahead? Everyone had no objection to Xiaokang's proposal and flew forward immediately. Zhang Fengwu, who had the strongest spiritual sense, led the way so that he could detect the changes in the chaotic aura in time. Du Qingdian, who had the strongest defense, followed behind. The other four took care of the two sides in the middle and were also ready to help. Maybe it was their good luck. Not long after, they encountered a spiritual object wrapped in chaotic aura in the void. Zhang Fengwu's eyes lit up immediately, but he did not relax his vigilance because of this. He carefully brought the spiritual object to himself. This is a 6th level spiritual object of the cloud and mist law, Zhang Fengwu said with surprise after using his spiritual sense to explore it. When the others heard this, they all smiled. They had just entered the void for only a few days, and they actually got a 6th level spiritual object. If Li Zhirui knew about this, he would definitely be envious. You know, he had been in the void for several months and had not encountered a spiritual object. In the end, he got the 8th grade wooden unicorn egg by chance on the way back. Brother Jiu also said that the void is infinite. Although most of them are high-level spiritual objects, they are very rare. Now it seems that he is probably unlucky, Zhaoqing said with a smile. Of course, they knew Li Zhirui's deeds clearly. It's a pity that we can't use the cloud and mist law, Xiaokang said with some regret. You can go back to Zuinitan realm and trade with the cultivators, Zhaoqing disagreed. 6th level spiritual objects are much more precious than 5th level spiritual objects. Even if you trade with several 5th level spiritual objects, the other party will make a profit. There will definitely be a spirit transforming person willing to trade. Before they left, they also asked their family to help collect information about the divine transformation monks in the Zuinitan realm, so that it would be easier to exchange information. Put away the spiritual objects first, we still have to continue exploring, Duqing reminded. Duqing's eyes showed a trace of contemplation. It was not a good thing to stay in one place all the time, and it was impossible to get a spiritual object without stopping to explore clearly. This would not only waste time, but also make everyone focus on the spiritual objects and neglect to be vigilant of the surroundings. Chapter 898 Encounter. Then, Duqing said the problem he had in mind and gave a solution. Every once in a while, they had to release a palace magic weapon to rest, because they were just divine transformation cultivators, and whether it was exploring the way with divine consciousness or using mana to resist the invasion of chaotic spiritual energy, it consumed a lot of energy. They could only last about 10 days before they had to rest and recover. It was just the right opportunity to take inventory of spiritual objects. It didn't require extra time, and it could also focus more on guarding against the dangers hidden everywhere in the void. Great good, everyone understood the significance and benefits of Duqing's doing so, and naturally would not object. Perhaps it was really the prosperity of several people. As they continued to move away from the Zuinitan realm, they got more and more spiritual objects. In just half a year, they got more than a dozen spiritual objects. Although they were all 5th and 6th level spiritual objects, and there was only one Duqing that matched the practice of the Panmu law, it also made everyone excited. Because this means that there are indeed many spiritual objects in the void. If they don't get them now, it doesn't mean that they won't have a chance in the future. After all, according to their discussion, they are ready to practice in the void for several years. But the harvest in the following months disappointed everyone, as they only got 5 high-level spiritual objects. If they hadn't seen such a great harvest, they would have been overjoyed. However, they had raised their expectations with a previous rich harvest, and now they were disappointed because they couldn't achieve it. In the past year or so, they did encounter dangers. The most dangerous one was when they were almost swept into the sudden chaos storm. Fortunately, Zhang Fengwu and the other 6 reacted quickly and joined hands to escape without any danger. One day, the 6 people were looking for treasures in the void as usual, but Zhang Fengwu suddenly raised his head and shouted, "Someone is flying towards us in the distance." When they were ready, they could actually see the body of the demon cultivator. The speed was so fast that everyone was shocked. "Fellow Taoists in front, please help me stop this old demon and don't let him escape," another shout followed. Demon cultivator, Zhang Fengwu, who originally didn't intend to intervene, changed his mind and thought that this might be a good opportunity to contact cultivators from other worlds. Moreover, everyone can kill the demon cultivator. Maybe Zhang Fengwu and others are relatively weak, but with so many people around, and they are just obstructing the demon cultivator, not really going to fight with him, it is naturally very easy. At this time, they found that the demon cultivator was actually a combined demon cultivator. Refining key. Nascent soul, transformation, refining void, but the combination. After the combination, only the Mahayana realm and the tribulation are left. It can be seen that the realm of this demon cultivator is very high. The cultivator who followed closely behind easily took down the disturbed demon cultivator. Junior greets the senior. Zhang Fengwu and others hurriedly greeted. She originally thought that it was just a cultivator in the refining void realm. Zhang Fengwu came forward to ask for advice with the credit of helping, which might not be impossible. But now, the strength of the two sides is very different, and Zhang Fengwu is not qualified to say the words he prepared before. In the early stage of the spiritualization, the great man glanced at everyone and chuckled, "You are so bold, this 5th level spiritual object will be considered a thank you gift." After saying that, he turned around and returned to the vast void without caring about the reactions of Zhang Fengwu and others. Although Zhang Fengwu and others did not achieve their wishes, they at least got a 5th level spiritual object, which was not in vain. But unexpectedly, they saw this powerful man again in just a few days. And he was still capturing demon cultivators. But this time he didn't need the help of Zhang Fengwu and others, and he easily caught a demon cultivator in the void refining realm. "I didn't expect to meet him a second time in the vast void," the great man sighed. He didn't think about whether Zhang Fengwu and others were following him, because with their cultivation level of only the early stage of the spiritualization realm, they didn't have this ability at all. "Don't go any further. The situation ahead is chaotic. If you go there with your strength, you will just die," the great man advised kindly. Zhang Fengwu and the others were shocked and bowed to express their gratitude. "Thank you for telling us, senior. We will leave now." They didn't need to know what happened ahead. Since they knew it was dangerous, they just changed direction. There was no rotation of seasons in the void, but the 6 people knew clearly that they had been in the void for a year. Should we go back? In this year or so, they had obtained a lot of high-level spiritual objects. Counting them all, there were as many as 37. It doesn't look like much, but you have to know that these are all high-level spiritual objects of level 5 or 6, not to mention that they also got a level 7 spiritual object. It was in the void, and they were very lucky that they could get so many spiritual objects. Among these 37 spiritual objects, there was a big green suitable for practicing the law of rock and wood, and a small green suitable for practicing the law of strong wind. It seems that there are only 2, but the proportion is already very high, but the others are a little discouraged. "Yes, I have been training in the void for 2 years. It's time to go back," Dakwing said. "After all, we are far away from Zuinitan realm now, and it will take a long time to go back." Zhang Fengwu thought about it, and finally nodded and agreed. With a rich harvest, they were no longer willing to take risks. Moreover, in 2 years, they had consumed all kinds of precious pills, and even if they wanted to continue training in the void, it was not very realistic. 2 flowers bloom, each with its own beauty. Zuinitan realm, Banyan Island. Li Zhirui, who had been in seclusion for more than 2 years, was surrounded by spiritual light, like a dancing butterfly. Suddenly, Li Zhirui was shocked, and the spiritual light poured into his body, pushing his realm to rise. After an unknown period of time, Li Zhirui suddenly opened his eyes and murmured, "I am one step closer to the late stage of the god transformation," but he didn't know that the sky above Banyan Island in the outside world was once again filled with rolling clouds of disasters. "Wow! Which nascent soul elder is breaking through the tribulation again?" another clan member said. "I think it's more like a certain ancestor's contracted spirit beast. After all, the nascent soul cultivators of the Li family are still far from the transformation of the spirit. The highest realm is Li Changshuo, but the clan members don't know that she is back. Although Li Changshuo has found the direction to move forward, the time is too short and the accumulation is not enough, so the breakthrough this time is not her, but Zhang Fengwu's contracted spirit beast Longli. Have you noticed that I don't seem to have seen the ancestors in recent years?" After all, some clan members discovered this problem. Maybe these ancestors are all practicing. How could it be so coincidental? The clan member shook his head and said, "Like Longli's spirit ancestor breaking through, there is no sign of Zhang Elder, For a time, the clan members talked a lot, and various rumors were rampant. But Li Zhirui, who had just finished practicing, received the news and personally came forward to protect him, instantly shattering the rumors spread among the clan members. Chapter 899 Twists and Turns. Long Li survived the tribulation smoothly. After the thunder tribulation dissipated, Li Zhirui also disappeared. Li Zhirui heard the tribesmen's discussion, but did not take it to heart, because his appearance was enough to appease everyone. Feng Wu, Daking and the others should be back soon. Li Zhirui sat cross-legged in the spiritual realm, with 6 intact life cards beside him. His eyes seemed to be able to see through the space and see the 6 people walking in the void. I wonder how much they will gain. After they come back, Li Zhirui also plans to go to the void to look for opportunities. Although his current cultivation speed is already very fast compared to ordinary incarnations, Li Zhirui still wants to break through faster and earlier, so as to ascend to the upper realm, at the same time, the void. Be careful, the chaos fluctuations ahead are not normal. Zhang Fengwu keenly noticed something wrong and immediately reminded everyone. Daking and the other 5 suddenly became nervous. Their trip to the void this time can be said to be smooth sailing, and they did not encounter any danger. But they did not relax their vigilance because of this, but became more cautious. Zhang Fengwu led everyone to carefully bypass the danger. They thought they were out of danger, but they were unlucky enough to run into a seriously injured demon cultivator in the early stage of the refining void realm. His appearance made Zhang Fengwu and the other 6 people nervous. Although his injuries looked very serious, they still felt a strong sense of oppression. God will not kill me, Luo Bi. I didn't expect to meet you guys who are so good at replenishing things. The demon cultivator laughed wildly and rushed towards them without hesitation. In Luo Bi's view, Li Chengsheng and the other 6 were already his meals. Do it. Zhang Fengwu looked solemn, and as soon as he made a move, he used his most powerful magical power, and the layers of formations flew towards him. Duckwing sacrificed his life magic weapon and turned into thick spiritual light to protect the 6 people. Xiaoqing and Fengpeng raised strong winds and fierce winds, whistling and rushing towards the demon cultivator. Xiaoqing spit out a dragon ball, and lightning splashed everywhere, turning into an explosive spear, aiming at the wound of the demon cultivator. Li Chengsheng condensed a sun, and the flames rolled down, forming a sea of fire, trapping the demon cultivator in it. HMPH, the demon cultivator snorted disdainfully, and with one move, he set off layers of storms, easily crushing the attacks of the 6 people. Why struggle? Why don't you just surrender? I won't let you feel the pain. But what answered him was Zhaoqing and the others' more fierce attacks. Zhang Fengwu only attacked once, then stopped and concentrated on setting up the formation. She knew in her heart that with the strength of the 6 of them, even if the other party was seriously injured, they might not be Luo Bi's opponent, and could only rely on external forces. In an instant, formation flags flew out, hanging around, and the formation pattern stretched out. Zhang Fengwu set up a 5th level formation at the fastest speed. Ho ha, such a crude formation, dare to show it in front of me. Luo Bi laughed strangely and shot a black gas at the formation, and the spiritual light suddenly shook violently, and many formation flags had cracks. A set of 5th order formations, in front of him, couldn't even hold out for 3 moves. Zhang Fengwu's expression condensed, and the magic formula of his hands reversed. The formation plate exploded with a bang, and the formation flag exploded. This set of 5th order formations that cost a lot of spiritual objects was detonated by her. The powerful shock wave swept in all directions. After being stimulated by this, the originally unstable void quickly formed a chaotic torrent, covering the sky and the sun and rushing towards the direction where Luo Bi was. Damn it, Luo Bi cursed with a gloomy face, not caring about Zhang Fengwu and others, and hurriedly flew to the side. Not to mention that he was seriously injured. Even if he was unscathed, he didn't dare to confront the chaotic torrent head-on. Zhang Fengwu and others happened to be on the back of the torrent. Although they would be affected a little, it was not serious. If Duckwing went all out, he could block it. Therefore, the other 5 people launched a crazy attack, completely ignoring the consequences of excessive consumption of mana in the void. Especially Xiaoqing and Li Chengsheng, one is the thunder of the magnificent heavenly power, and the other is the son of the strongest and most masculine, and they are the most restrained magic cultivators with evil magic power. You are looking for death? Luo Bi roared angrily. I will cut you into pieces and tear your bodies into pieces to relieve my hatred. Luo Bi, who was avoiding the chaotic torrent, found it difficult to avoid the attacks from both sides, and he could not stop to fight back. Because the torrent was coming fiercely, it was only a few miles behind him. He could only use his body to bear it. Luo Bi, who was already seriously injured, was occasionally hit by the attacks of Zhang Fengwu and others. He twitched all over his body and his speed unconsciously slowed down. The chaotic torrent, which was originally a safe distance, was getting closer and closer, scaring Luo Bi to death, and stimulating his blood to speed up his escape. As long as I don't die, I will find you in the future. Avenge today, Luo Bi's voice full of resentment echoed in the void. It's a pity that you have no future. A cultivator in the late stage of the void refining suddenly appeared from nowhere. A rope shining with golden light flew out of his hand, extending for dozens of miles to tie up Luo Bi and catch him in front of him. But the appearance of this cultivator did not make Zhang Fengwu and others feel relieved, but nervous. The cultivators are not righteous, but they have a higher bottom line than the demon cultivators. But when it comes to killing people and seizing treasures, the cultivators will never be merciful. And in this vast void, it is the best place to kill people and throw corpses. Tisk, seeing Zhang Fengwu and others so nervous, the cultivator sneered disdainfully and turned away. The reason why he let Zhang Fengwu and the other 6 people go was that because of them, he could find Luo Bi so smoothly and arrest him. Otherwise, in the void where there is chaotic spiritual energy everywhere, almost no traces will be left. It would be difficult for him to find a person with his current cultivation. He noticed that someone was fighting here, and came with the idea of trying his luck, but he didn't expect to really catch Luo Bi. From this point of view, they have a favor to him, and he is not a person who repays kindness with hatred. Secondly, he didn't think that a few cultivators who had just entered the God-transforming realm could obtain any precious spiritual objects in the void. Instead of wasting time on them, it would be better to capture a few more demon cultivators. Let's go. Without Da Qing's urging, Xiao Qing showed his true form, an extremely large Qing Peng, flapped his wings, and quickly left with everyone on his back. Feng Peng helped to gather the law of wind on his back to speed up Xiao Qing. Da Qing helped everyone block the invasion of chaotic spiritual energy, so that the other 3 people could take the time to recover their mana, so that they could take turns. Perhaps it was because everyone's bad luck was used up on the encounter with the demon cultivator of the refining void realm, and they only encountered some minor disturbances on the way back to the Zuinu realm. Finally back, looking at the small temple standing alone in the void in front of them, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Chapter 900, Great Power. Back, Li Zhirui had just finished his training when he received Da Qing's soul transmission. He immediately stood up and left the spiritual realm, flying to the cave on the top of the mountain. Brother Jiu will be here soon, Da Qing said to the others after receiving the reply. In just a moment, Li Zhirui appeared in front of everyone. He swept his eyes over them and said with a smile, "It seems that you have gained a lot on this trip." Everyone was smiling, their eyes were full of excitement, and they knew that they had gained a lot without guessing. Brother Jiu, guess how many high-level spiritual objects we got, Zhao Qing said proudly. Li Zhirui narrowed his eyes, pondered for a moment, and said, 20. He calculated based on 3 spiritual objects per person, and slightly increased 2. More than that, Zhao Qing shook his head. Li Zhirui was stunned when he heard this. They had only been in the void for 2 or 3 years, but they actually got so many spiritual objects? Was it because his luck was low back then, or was it because their luck was prosperous? 30. A total of 42 high-level spiritual objects, including 1 7th-level spiritual object, 13 6th-level spiritual objects, and the remaining 28 are all 5th level. Da Qing did not let Li Zhirui continue to guess, but said it directly. On the way back, they also got 5 spiritual objects. Hiss. Hearing this amazing number, Li Zhirui couldn't help but take a breath of cold air, and said with envy, "Your luck is too good. It just so happens that I also plan to go to the void to look for opportunities. Maybe I can continue your good luck." Zhang Fengwu frowned when he heard it, and advised, "Zhirui, I think you should wait a few years before going. I don't know what big things happened in the void. We met a combined great power and were attacked by a refining demon cultivator. If it weren't for the chance to stir up the chaotic spiritual energy and form a torrent, I don't know how many of us can come back." Although a cultivator in the late stage of refining the void appeared later, before he arrived, one of the 6 of them might really have died. Li Chengsheng and his companions also spoke out to persuade him that the void was turbulent and becoming more dangerous, so it would not be too late to wait a few more years. Daking and his 3 companions did not speak, but stood quietly aside, because they knew that Li Zhirui had the space to rely on, and was not afraid of encountering danger at all. Unfortunately, Zhang Fengwu and his companions' advice did not dispel Li Zhirui's idea. Because since his cultivation level was improved, he had been thinking about going to the void, and the desire was getting stronger and stronger. This unusual situation was completely reminding Li Zhirui that there was an opportunity in the void, waiting for his arrival. Don't worry, if I go to the void, I will be very cautious. Li Zhirui smiled and changed the subject directly, saying, you count the spiritual objects, I'll go back first. But after he walked out of the cave, he did not fly to the spiritual realm, but walked towards the Shangsu formation not far away. Buzz, accompanied by a low cry, Li Zhirui's figure instantly disappeared in the formation, and after a dizzy spin, he appeared in the Li family's courtyard in the void. A few breaths ago, the people were distributing spiritual objects in the cave, and they were arguing. After all, even spiritual objects of the same grade have different values. Can a 5th grade silver leaf golden heartgrass used to make talisman paper and a 5th grade great fantasy dream fruit that can repeatedly create a fantasy world have the same value? At this moment, everyone suddenly heard Dakwing say loudly, 9th brother has left Zuinitun realm and headed for the void. At this point, no matter how much they said, it was useless. They could only put the matter behind them and continue the quarrel. This 5th grade spiritual object is useful to me, and it should be distributed to me. Xiao Kang pointed to a spiritual object and said. Zhang Fengwu shook his head and objected, no. This spiritual object is extremely rare and cannot be distributed like this. After a long time of arguing, they were finally satisfied. Li Zhirui looked at the grey void and murmured, Dakwing said they are going all the way forward, so I will start this experience in their direction. As for what to do if they encounter danger on the road? If you can beat them, fight them. If you can't beat them, hide in the space. Will the other party wait for 10 days or half a month in the void? Space is Li Zhirui's biggest trump card for this trip. Li Zhirui rested for a while, then left the palace and officially entered the void. The surroundings were filled with chaotic spiritual energy. It seemed calm, but a terrible crisis was brewing in secret. If you were not careful, you could take away several spiritual cultivators. Not long after Li Zhirui entered the void, he encountered a large chaos storm. He was only at the outermost edge of the storm, but the energy that tore everything apart made Li Zhirui dare not fight against it, and hurriedly hid in the space. After waiting for a whole day, Li Zhirui left. The terrifying storm had passed, but it did not cause any impact on the void. A few days later, Li Zhirui finally got the first 5th level spiritual object. This seemed to be a beginning. He would get spiritual objects almost every day afterwards. Li Zhirui finally felt the feeling of being rich. What happened in the void? High-level spiritual objects have become so common. Li Zhirui was full of curiosity. You know, the chaotic spiritual energy in the void is not only rich, but also of extremely high quality, so it breeds a large number of high-level spiritual objects. But even so, because the void is boundless, no matter how many high-level spiritual objects are scattered in it, they will appear relatively rare. How could it be possible to get spiritual objects almost every day like now? Unfortunately, Li Zhirui's cultivation is limited, and he can't find a reason, so he can only bear this heavy happiness. Boom boom. One day, Li Zhirui, who was walking carefully in the void, suddenly heard a burst of thunder and explosion in his ears. His expression changed instantly and he looked in the direction where the sound came from. There are powerful people fighting, should I go over and see? Li Zhirui was a little entangled in his heart. If he went, he would most likely be targeted by the powerful. If he didn't go, he wanted to see how big the gap was between his own strength and the strength of the powerful people, and at the same time set a clear goal for himself. After hesitating for a while, Li Zhirui finally set foot on the road to the battlefield. Huge explosions came from time to time, pointing him in the direction. Almost an hour later, Li Zhirui arrived at the edge of the battlefield. In the center, a cultivator and a demon cultivator were fighting. Both of them were in the fusion realm. Li Zhirui's face changed drastically. This was actually a powerful person in the fusion realm. No wonder he could transmit the battle wave so far away and still be very clear. The moment Li Zhirui appeared, he attracted the attention of the two. The demon cultivator took the time to attack Li Zhirui, and black light broke through the air. But the cultivator did not help. It was just a small ant, not worth his attention. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.